All right, people. All right. Whew. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Huanying Laita bienvenidos a todos Pakhair Ragle Khushamadid and as always people Swagatam Swagatam. So alright, ¿qué está pasando mi gente? Let me just take a look. Bring up some of your deviant chats to find out where we at, people, where we at, what's going on. Let me just move this stuff a bit to the side, a bit over there. All right, so let me just see where we at, people, where we at. Let me bring up the chat. Make sure you can all hear me. Don't want you guys to just be going on. Kuch pata hi na chale. Got no idea. Mufti G. Wait there. Un momentico, hermano. What is it? Was listening to some Tom Petty. Acha. Mufti, can you start daily vlogging? Zebaji, ahlan wa sahlan, love blue on Mufti. All right, shukran, shukran. Kya kare, you know, it's all an illusion, people. Sab maya hai, sab maya hai. But who is this Maya is the real question. So, va. So, let me just move this over there. All right, so people. Oh, I haven't checked with me Facebook. Mi gente on Facebook, can they hear me fine? Let me just bring that up. No drinking and driving, Azarati says. Yep, Azarati, well remembered. I can see some of the Facebook people already. Look at that. You've got, let me just check the comments. Frowdy Frobry, Riz, Ernad, Saliha, Hina, Imam Trump, Ayub, Claire. All right. Much love, people. Much love. I take it you can all hear me fine. Sounds all good. Good. All right. So, people, what is going on and what do we have? What do we have for tonight's session? All right. Somebody said, have you been listening to Sab Maya Hai? No, Sab Maya Hai, people. It is all an illusion. It is all but just an illusion. أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب والله. That's all it is. The life of this world is but just mere illusory play. That's all it is. So, what is going on? Prove to me you're alive. Got no idea how I could do that. Right, relax. No, Sam, what equipment do you use to stream? I use Streamlabs OBS. Valentine chocolates are haram. Haram. Yeah, they're haram, people. यार गलती से बोल दिए by mistake. No, it's haram. We miss you, Gio. I miss you guys too. Right, so what is going on? Mom, any lingering COVID symptoms? I don't think so. Knowledge, you're doing it. Mufti, mirpuri patwari. Could I do talks in mirpuri? Na. ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ Toba karo, parhez karo. Right. I could not do talks in Mirpuri. That would be just so. My mind I'd have like a malfunction. Acha, fir aaj what could we talk? Let's say, with my controversies as well. Alaika bane pe ke acha evi jaiza. Acha. Toba, 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 toba. Right, so I know I could not. And then you get the elder generation hearing it. Toba, tobatan nasuha. They'll be like, kapong up, yeah. We'd have to. No. Istishabul hal. Istishabul hal. People. Now, that said, recently I've noticed Sheikh Aslam is doing a lot of talks in Mirpuri, in Patwari. I've seen at least about, I haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen them, glimpses of them on Facebook. So there you go. I suppose that helps the elderly community. My audience is the younger community. In the words of Mir people. Mir, he says, Mir sher mere hain khawas pasand. That my poems are liked by the elite. Sher mere hain khawas pasand. Par guftagu mujhe awam se. Allah, Allah. He says, but it is the common man who I actually address. That is Frederick Mahl's perfume. Mufti, have you tried? I have actually. I've got, I think, about 2 of them or something. I wasn't really impressed. So, what is going down? Right, all right. People who are spamming, the mods are on it. Look at that. Inaya, Zeba, we've got Frowdy, Frabri. They're on it, people. They're on it. So, not to spam, man. Not to spam. So, what are we going to be taking a look at? We've got a bunch of things. I did want to also see, be discussing. I want to put a few things under the microscope today. Microscope ko nikalte hain. Let's take out this microscope and put a few things under this. A few of the mashayikh and what's going on. We've got our all-wise from the United States, Asim al-Hakim. Right, so As. God, Asim. As I'm. Huh? I'm As. No, As I'm. Huh? Here, it's not my fault. Dyslexia. I'm As. Huh? No, Asim al-Hakim. So, taking a look at him, I want to take a look at Abdurrahman Hassan and a quote from him. Ustad Abdurrahman Hassan ji. Also, I spoke too soon. I spoke previously of Mufti Abdurrahman Mangera. So somebody had sent me a clip. I want to put that slightly under the microscope. And of course, our beloved, who has done a... we're going to be looking at our beloved, who's... who's done a whole session on drugs, weed, cannabis, and DMT. Rather. Needless to say, obviously everything is haram. I could save you the whole thing by just telling you the spoiler, which without any, there's no real twists to it, plot twists. It's just what you'd expect Sheikh Asrar to say. So it's haram. So we want to take a little look at that as well. So these are some of the things we've got in store today. Right, so people, so don't worry about it, man. You can send in your super chats, man. Super chats. I actually was going to show you this, that I was showing it on the meetup, that I do have the Mindscape coming soon, people, coming soon. We were hoping it was going to be launched for today, but, you know, as I often say to you, that मैं देर करता नहीं, देर हो जाती. That it's not me, it's just destiny, people. That it's not like I'm late. Lateness just happens. It just happens to happen, and I just happen to be in it whilst it's happening. So, where we at, people? Where we at? I've got a poem I've read before once, but it is it's an interesting one because it has a very natural, seamless flow to it. And it's about the person expressing that if somebody was to ask you, who am I? Just say, nobody that important. No es importante. Right, so, कोई तुमसे पूछे कौन हूं मैं, तुम कह देना कोई खास नहीं. So that's the, just let them know that it's nobody special. एक दोस्त है कच्चा पक्का सा, एक झूठ है आधा सच्चा सा, एक ख्वाब अधूरा पूरा सा, एक फूल है रूखा सूखा सा, एक सपना है बिन सोचा सा, एक अपना है अनदेखा सा. Wow, without having seen, but yet he's our own. एक रिश्ता है अनजाना सा, हकीकत में अफसाना सा. Just look at that line. Look, एक रिश्ता है अनजाना सा. It is a relationship that is unknown, that is not truly known. हकीकत में अफसाना सा, which in reality is but a fantasy. कुछ पागल सा दीवाना सा, बस एक बहाना अच्छा सा. जीवन का ऐसा साथी है, जो दूर हो तो कुछ पास नहीं. That's such a companion in life, who जो दूर हो तो कुछ पास नहीं. That if he or she is far, then one has nothing. कोई तुमसे पूछे कौन हूं मैं, तुम कह देना कोई खास नहीं. Wow, 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 wow. Fire, people, fire. So, right now, let's take a look at what is going on. Zere Khanjar says, हकीकत जो अफसाना था. वाह, 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 वाह. क्या बात है, क्या बात है. See, people, yep, so Valentine has passed. You know, I think I should say a few words about Valentine's. Now that it's passed. For all the wounded souls that are there, like, or in the words of Mir, where he says, Mir, talwar chalti hai to chale. That Mir, if a sword is to strike, let it strike. That Mir, talwar chalti hai to chale. In khush khiramo ki chal aur hai. Khiram is the walk, the alluring, the seductive walk of a woman. It's called khiram, khush khiram. And he says, in khush khiramo ki chal aur hai. He says that the way they walk, this is something you're talking to me about the striking of a sword. What is that? He's saying this is where a person meets their fatality. Wah, wah, Mirji, wah, wah. So, yeah, but I was going to say actually about Valentine's. You know, I think I've said this stuff before, to be fair, that look, these things are not haram as far as the harim is concerned of the Sharia. But one must always, keep it real in life. Because these things, the problem today, and this is really a modern phenomenon, and I guess in some ways this advice that I'm sharing now is maybe for people who are, it's for anyone, but, especially people who may be freshly embarking upon a relationship, that, you see, this day and age, this is a very recent phenomenon, that everything, life's measure has become based simply on relationships. That is how a person becomes, how they identify themselves, what their worth is almost in life, it hinges on relationships. And what I would seriously say to people is that, look, don't fall victim to this kind of a spiraling rabbit hole. That don't. Even when, look, these things are all good. There's nothing wrong with relationships, of course. These things are good. They're great in their own right. But a person should always maintain their own sense of identity, their individual sense of purpose. Don't let these things, beguile you to the sense that you lose that. Because, ultimately, you are always you. You are not. I know there's this thing of becoming a joint identity, but a person is always themselves. And this is why I think, and I say this because in this day and age, sometimes relationships are very short-lived compared to generations ago. Because people today, it's all about that being in that elated sense of love, and that is an emotion, and emotions by their very nature subside. So, when a person if they find themselves at a low, or if they find themselves out of a relationship, they should not be in such a way that their life becomes unbearable. You understand? So this is why I'm saying that these things are good, they're great, but always maintain a sense of self-purpose. You are an individual, keep your own goals, keep your own journey developing as well. That's that's some words that I feel, because you see how devastated people become. And also, don't buy into the general hype of, because a lot of people on things like, these Valentine's Day and this kind of stuff, what it does is it also depresses a lot of people. Because, you see, we are social creatures. We measure ourselves in relation to others around us. So I see, how am I doing in life? It's based on how other people are doing. So, and you could see that in items like having a mobile phone. You could love your phone, but if a new version came out, it's only when other people start purchasing that version, so they start going around with a different version now, that you will feel lacking. you will feel a sense of, damn, like I've lost out. Because we see ourselves in relation to others, that al-insan madaniyun bit-taba', that, we are social creatures. So these kind of events depress a lot of people as well. So it is a shame. And really, in all honesty, it is just a commercial uh, exploitation package, really aimed at women. And that's the truth of it. Men, in all honesty, couldn't care less. I mean, it's true. I was hearing somewhere, you never see a man get excited about these things. Oh, it's Valentine's. No way. It's all really just aimed at women and about consumerism and what the money that they can spend. And I'm not saying that the thing in and of itself is forbidden or haram. It's not. And I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. It doesn't have to be. It could just be a fine little thing, but not to get obsessed over these. They don't really mean that much in life. Okay, so cool. Somebody said Muslims, there's not many in the UK. I don't know what that is talking about. I think most of Mufti's fans are from the USA. Surprisingly, I'm not sure actually. I would feel that sometimes. I would feel that that is the case. A lot of the love and support I get sometimes is from Canada and the US. That sometimes even on the meetups, I'm surprised when it's somebody from the UK. But when I look at my YouTube analytics, it shows that the majority of the people still watching me are from the UK, which is quite surprising to me, to be honest. Although it's probably not, it's like, I think it's a 60% majority is probably, that's the last time I checked it, were British. So I was like, whoa, okay. Unless that's all my haters saying, yeah, let's watch his. Cool. So I think the live is definitely Canadians and Americans, because maybe that's because of my timings. I'm a vampire, you see. So, people, what is going on? Chip says, I'm in Oxford. You're doing it. You're doing it. You need to crack in the Saudi and Pakistani market. Don't know about that, but yeah. Ifra, I'm from Norway. You're doing it, Ifra. You're doing it. Right. What are your thoughts on Islam in Malaysia? Yeah. I think Malaysia has a very and Indonesia, they have a very cool natural perception of Islam. What I mean by that is they seem to have ingratiated themselves, kind of immersed themselves, absorbed the deen in a way that it doesn't hinder their day-to-day lives. It seems to be a natural. That's my impression of them. That said, I do feel that recently, in maybe the last decade and a half or something, there was a rise in extremism over there. So, very, the Salafi inspired kind of hardliners were on the rise, and there were several terrorist attacks and attacks on Christians and things like that, which were really very sad, unfortunately. Right. That reminds me, somebody said Mufti's gone global. Hell yeah, Mr. Worldwide. Dale. It's all about the Dale lifestyle, huh? Is that so? Spectrum says, hey, Mufti. Hey, Spectrum. Hey, Mufti. Hey, dude. What's going on? I have two serious questions. Whoa. Somebody says I have two. they just got blocked. Inaya just blocked Spectrum or deleted. Well, I got one part of the question. Mufti, someone sent a really interesting super chat. Why didn't the Prophet compose his own tafseer? Why couldn't a Sahabi sit with him and go through each ayah? That is a very good question, Inaya, whoever sent that. You see, in many ways, people don't see this as a curse or as something unfortunate. See the blessing in it. You see, if everything became defined, it would have restricted everything. And the fact that it was left to human understanding to be able to read it in light of their own day and age is what gives the Qur'an its kind of timelessness. See, the problem with defining everything, it would be, in essence, placing parameters on everything. And don't let that, I don't think we need to do that, because I think humans are infinitely, we are not only different, but mysterious in our own ways, that we have we find a sense of mystery that may be unique to us in life. And yet when we read the Quran, it gives us the meaning that we may need from it. Just like many things, like let's say poetry, you could take a unique meaning from it. Some poetry is more vague at times. And the nature of the Quran is it's quite unbounded like that. It's, it doesn't give always definitives. It kind of answers something, but leaves a lot of room, a lot of leeway for people to maneuver. This maneuverability is what makes it even more meaningful for more people, because you might come to the Quran and take a meaning that helps you in your life, and I might read it, and somebody had sent a message about saying about supernatural, this whole thing. Mufti, you say about you don't believe in the supernatural. I never got the final part of the question, but you see, now some people may read the Quran and that's what they believe in. I'm just saying, they need folklore, they need these stories in that kind of folkloric sense, and they can take that from it. But a person can approach the Quran and say, well, actually, it doesn't actually say that. It just has this part, this part. There's a lot of ellipses. There's a lot of this elliptical text with things missing, and it doesn't actually, you're filling in the gaps yourself. But the nature of the Quran is it does that a lot. And I think that's an amazing aspect of it. Just take the example that they said that Jesus didn't have a father. Now, here, Allah could have just said, let's just say, the Quran could have said, if you want to go with the fact that Jesus did not have a father, that yes, Jesus, lam yakun lahu ab. He didn't have a father. Allah could have said this. Oh, lam yalidhu walid or something. They could have said something like this. But first of all, I don't obviously believe in the virgin birth, as many of the Mufassirin don't. But you see, the verse of the Quran says, in response to those people, Inna mathala Isa indallahi ka mathali Adam. That the likeliness, or the similitude, or the allegory that you guys are giving of Isa, of Jesus, is like that of Adam. خَلَقَهُ مِن تُرَابٍ, created him from soil, ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُن, and said to him, be, and he was. So many things were said in this verse that leave, it's amazing when you look at it. that for some people they took a superficial understanding of saying, well, so Adam never had a father, so Jesus never had a father. But some people could say, well, but Adam, are you saying then Adam had a mother? And so in that case, if Jesus did have a mother, and most likely he had a father, that could be similarly the same case with Adam. Then one could also extrapolate from this, well, looking at evolution, the understanding that, well, you see, Jesus wasn't just out of nothing. He didn't just emerge. So Adam wouldn't have either. But then you look at the latter part of the verse that خَلَقَهُ مِن تُرَابٍ, created him from dust, and then said to him, be, and he was. You see, but why say be and he was if you created him? This is the part that many people just brush over. They don't really think about it. Allah could have said, he said to him, be, and he was. But Allah says he created him. خَلَقَهُ مِن تُرَابٍ. So, if that's allegorical, you see, the thing is, the verse hinges itself on so many different permutations. So, and that to me is the kind of the majestic poetic aspect of the Qur'an. I mean, the Qur'an is not poetry, but that's the kind of the artistic aspect of the Quranic scripture. I hope that makes some sense. Mufti, when are you gonna shook my mind, man? I watched those documentaries on Wahhabism. God damn, they hit home. Shocking. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Yep. Hardliners. Mariam says hardliners are also from the nutcases people. They are, unfortunately, they are. Somebody said, oh, that's the same question on Malaysia. Turn 80 says, shukran for the super chat, much love. Hugh Jasol has said, my wife says I'm a pain in the backside, help. This one, you nutty. Well, as the Andalusi proverb goes, that al-uruq muttasila. The nerves are connected, people. The nerves are connected. So, let's go back to what do I think about liberal Islam? Right now, I mean, I'm not sure what that exactly means because there's a lot of these labels, and I don't know if you can really apply these things to religion in that sense, because really these were, you see, these terms like liberal and conservative and stuff like that were really defining spectrums of politics. So it was to do with authority, that where you stand in relation to authority, that are you somebody who feels that the state should have more involvement in your life? Or do you feel that, you're anti kind of totalitarianism and anti-control and you want people to have more liberties? And this is what liberal was in essence. Today, to be fair, many if we're going to look at the UK, I suppose by that standard, most politicians are liberal by that standard. And then, yes, because Europe, its state was also intertwined with the church. So liberalism, being liberated from the state, equally meant being liberated from the church because of its power. It's very difficult applying these parameters to Islam because Islam never really worked in that way. There was never really a papacy or a pope system in Islam, and it was never. It's just a different paradigm. The scholars were usually independent, um, and they are the ones who came up with the rulings. Now, I'm not saying there were no power politics at play. There were, but it's not the same kind of, how do you define a liberal? Is it somebody that just goes with the easy rulings? Then in that case, would you say some of the companions were liberals? I mean, you wouldn't really use that word for them. Would you say Imam Abu Hanifa was a liberal? I mean, it's really difficult understanding what these words mean in terms of Islam. I know a lot of Muslims use them, but they're not not truly meaningful. They seem to be using them to mean strict Islam and not so strict Islam. But that's not, because those rulings that they're going to go by will be said by scholars of the past. Nobody's making those rulings up. So how does that work then? Because those scholars of the past wouldn't be defined as liberal. So, okay, cool, let's move on. Mufti, what's the history of the ruling of music being haram? What's the history of the ruling of music? I don't understand the question. Let me have a sip of this coffee. Yeah, what? Yeah, ho ka raha hai wo. I don't seem to understand. What's the history of the ruling of music being haram? I don't get it. I don't know what's being asked there. Let's move on. Why do you look like a woman? Dunya Diary says. With earring and a necklace. Well, Dunya definitely won't be having any difficulty in Dunya Diaries, right? So this brother, hey, brother, what do you mean? Of course I know it's a woman. Oh, it's a woman. Do you, brother, are you aware that men also have something else, brother? यार ये earring ही ढूंढता रहा. He was just too busy looking for the earring. You could tell he got into some sticky situations because he's like, he must have seen earring. Oh, okay. Yes, let's go. This one, okay. Huh? But you have earring, this one, brother. No, sister, huh? Oh, chalo, now that you're here. Aye, Wahhabis. This is the thing, you see. Their weird world where they walk around in a frock and sandals all day, wearing a dupatta on their heads with eyeliner on, and then they say having a necklace like this makes you a woman. Oh, God. The joys of being a Wahhabi. It's just, it's fun and games, people, fun and games. Not. So, Turn 80 says you ain't gonna answer the question. I thought I just answered this question. Liberal Islam, wasn't it? I just said that this is really, it's a misapplied term, doesn't really mean anything. Right, so Orenthal James, Mufti, last week you said the companions didn't see Jibreel, but the hadith says it was Jibreel, and then the Prophet confirmed it. Now, you see, yes and no. So I did explain that it depends how you're reading that. Because when it says he said that, you know, this is his interpretation, or are you reading it as this is what the Prophet said? So this hadith is really the interpretation that he says that that was Jibreel. And the he here was the companion. Now they assume that. It's not that the Prophet taught them that. So that's what I'm saying, that these wordings, because in Arabic, you see, you don't use the pronoun again. You just have a lot of he said, like qala, 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 you know. And this qala, who is it going back to? So on certain occasions, that's one point that causes a lot of, it doesn't, you see, it can cause confusion, or there just becomes a widespread interpretation that, oh, this is actually referring to the Prophet here, or it's referring to this person. Or you've got the person narrating it assuming this person is saying the Prophet said it. You understand? So if I'm giving a story and I'm telling you, so in this case, I believe it's Umar radiallahu anh saying that, oh, this person came and this, and he said this, we asked the Prophet, and then he says, oh, huwa Jibreel atakum yu'allimukum dinakum. Now the person assumes he's saying the Prophet said this part as well, but this was his explanation of the event. Uh, So, oh, right. Somebody's asking about the shaytan and supernatural. I've got a video explaining all of that. Do watch it because, you know, I go into it in much detail. How do you understand the concept of the devil in Islam? And I explain that there's different takes on this. You know, there's some people who take this to mean a literal, you know, there's this creature called the devil, and he's this kind of creature with a body, and you know, has a tail and horns. Or obviously that stuff's stupid, but I mean, people believe it. So, and this person kind of zooms around the globe and he whispers to people and does stuff. So you have that camp of people, and then you have the other camp that will speak to these things are more so personifications of um really what were insinuations, negative insinuations. So we receive negative insinuations, negative impulses. These, the devil is the personification of that, or is that, but personified as a person. So that's you know, so you'll have different takes on this. That what is the Quran addressing? Is it this creature that runs around and does this, or is that simply a personification of these negative um, impulses and insinuations that we have? So, yeah. But I've got a detailed video on that. Was he talking to himself? Right, I don't know. Am I talking to myself? All the time. A story of my life. I'm just always talking to myself. Why aren't you a Mu'tazili? Quran first Muslim says. Because I'm Sunni. Why should I be Mu'tazili? You know, this is the problem. People are not happy just letting you be. They're like, yeah, why ain't you a Roman Catholic? You're like, because I'm not a Roman. No, but why ain't you a Roman Catholic? You're like, but I'm not a Roman Catholic. But why ain't you? Acha, but why ain't you a Protestant then? Why ain't you Ismaili, yaar? You seem to, you have to remember, look, the Mu'tazila were an extremist faction in Islam. They were heretics and they believed anybody who committed a sin was no longer a Muslim. Later, what happens is, you see, you have to understand something. A lot of history it's made to look neat and it gets kind of streamlined and presented in a particular way where it looks as though it had a theme playing out. But this is just in hindsight. It doesn't really work like that. This is just people's interpretation of what they took. So the Mu'tazila, who are amongst the early sects of Islam, today, the Mu'tazila, when people speak about them, they assume that they call them these super rationalists, which is stupid, calling them that. This is just part of propaganda that latter day Sunnis had to come up with to resolve certain crises that they were facing within theology. It's not, look, the Mu'tazila are a clearly defined sect. Clearly, it's like the Shia. They are a sect in Islam that are clearly defined. And then they disagree amongst themselves over things. So, for example, the Shia are based, the whole split is based on the household of the Prophet inherit the right to rule. This is what it's based on. The whole split of Sunni Shi'adom is based on this factor: who has the right to rule? And they say that it must remain within the sacred bloodline. That is what defines a Shia. Sunnis do not believe in a sacred bloodline. These are the demarcating factors. Now then, Shia will disagree amongst themselves. Which part of the bloodline does it go down? Does it go down Hassan? Does it go down Hussein? Is it going to end up the Fatimiyin? Or is it going to end up down here? What are the rulings? What superpowers do these imams have? Are they infallible? Are they not infallible? Then they'll have things like, little traditions. When they pray, they'll pray, put a little rock and bow down on that. But some of them might kind of beat themselves in Muharram. Some of them may visit certain shrines, and these are permutations, obviously, of the Shia tradition. But then they may have certain. So, for example, you could say, well, Mut'a, Shia have become identified with Mut'a, temporary marriages. And they've also become identified with wiping over the feet as opposed to wiping over socks. Now, in all honesty, these things have got nothing to do with being a Shia. But Sunnis kind of used this to try to lay a smackdown. And then they bolstered it and they, put a whole propaganda campaign behind it to highlight it. So it got popular. Now, because you have to understand, the common public are just casualties of war. Nobody really, they don't know what's going on. There is a theological turf war that is taking place, and the audience is the public. And what these people do is they play dirty tactics. And really, they will manipulate the public. So here, let's say now temporary marriages. So because this became something which in society people, even though people may do these things, but in society they look down upon it. It became a taboo. So therefore they whacked it onto the Shia because the Shia had said it was permissible anyway. And they started saying, oh, look at them. Oh, that's prostitution. Ha 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 ha. Shia, allow this. This was just a propaganda campaign. Mut'a had nothing to do with being a Shia. Shia was about who gets to rule. It was nothing about how you practice Islam. So, for example, Ibn Abbas, the companion, was a clear proponent of Mut'a. He argued that Mut'a was halal. Many of the people after him argue this, that Mut'a is halal. Then it falls out of flavor with many of the people, but the Shia continue it. So they're just getting targeted as part of this theological turf war. That, hey, look at them, prostitution, blah, 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 blah. Temporary marriages. So in a similar way, the Mu'tazila, what defined the Mu'tazila was the fact that they said that if a person commits a sin, he is no longer a Muslim. This was what defined them. They also said that God has no real control or does not dictate any. You see, they said that God is not in control of the kind of evil that happens in this world. And also, what ties into that is that God is duty bound to serve what is always good. So these few points, which are a bit intricate. So, for example, let's say you did a good deed. God is not all powerful enough to. I mean, he is all powerful, but God is now duty bound to make sure that you find a blissful afterlife. Whereas Sunnis, mainstream Sunnis, always held that God is omnipotent and he's not duty bound. He does what he does, but he's not duty bound. If God wants, there will be no afterlife, for example. Now, according to the Mu'tazila, that's impossible because you've done the good deed, you have to be rewarded. So therefore there has to be, like, God is duty bound to recompense. And so these issues are what split them off. It was nothing to do with reason, nothing to do with, oh, they were rationalists. But what happens is, as Islam progresses and Muslims progress in the next 200 years or so, because a lot of Mu'tazila happened to be grammarians and also philosophers, they did argue some points with the Sunnis. So what they did do is gain the upper hand from a point of reasoning. Like, they made some of the Sunnis feel dumb on some points. So what the Sunni reaction was, but you're using your aql. And this was a dumb point. So obviously, when they said this to the Mu'tazila just owned it and said, well, yeah, because Islam tells us to. But Sunnis used to also own it prior to this point. But when around the 4th century of Islam, Sunnis started to, 4th and 5th century, Sunnis started to say, well, because they were taking a little beating in some debates, so they started to say, but you're trying to use your aql, your intellect. And they said, okay. Here, Sunnis started to say, but the deen isn't built on intellect. And they started to pump this narrative just to get back at them. It was all a reaction. That's all it was. And later, subsequent generations just inherited this. But if you go back before that debate, so let's say you go back to the time of the Salaf, you go back to the first 200, maybe under 300 years of Islam, you will see that in the early times, many Sunni Muslims, in fact, some of the earliest people to claim reason and to own it was Sunni Islam. So this difference of reason was not a Mu'tazili point. Hence, all the great philosophers of Islam were not Mu'tazili. Ghazali, obviously before his thing, but Kindi, Farabi, these people were not. I mean, I suppose some people could say, well, some of them were from the Shia. Ibn Rushd, who was Maliki, who's somebody who I'm inspired by, take a lot of my rule. He was never Mu'tazili. You see, it does not mean to follow your reason you are Mu'tazila. This is later on, people like Ibn Taymiyyah, he really spewed this on steroids. It's like he injected himself and he would just bash on anyone using reason, saying, oh, Mu'tazila. Mu'tazila had long died before Ibn Taymiyyah. I mean, they didn't even exist in his day and age. But this retrospective, it's like, I give an example. It's like today, if somebody says something, you start calling them a communist. Oh, you're a communist. I mean, communism isn't really around today. And by saying something, you're not actually a communist. It's not like if you say, look, I think there should be, let's say, like in the UK, there should be a national health service as the NHS exists, and it's great. Now, oh, you're a commie. Why do you believe that the government should provide this? That's communism. You see, this is what Ibn Taymiyyah was doing. He was just like any person that was using his aql. Oh, you're a Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila has ceased to exist. Way before Ibn Taymiyyah, Qurtubi in his tafseer writes that, look, the Mu'tazila haven't existed for centuries. And he's from the 600s. He says that the Mu'tazila have long died out. But this is what they used to believe. So I hope that helps. And the reason I kind of went on there explaining that is because on many occasions, you will get this kind of dirty tactic by Muslims who can't handle your debate. So what they say is, oh, just call yourself a different sect and therefore we can disown you and we don't need to deal with you. Because if you say I'm a Mu'tazili, you say Abe Salo. Why would I say I'm a Mu'tazili when I'm not a Mu'tazili? That's like me saying I'm a Roman Catholic. Why would I say I'm a Roman Catholic? So you say, oh, but you use reason. Well, what? Don't you use reason? I mean, what's that even supposed to mean? The Qur'an instructs you to use reason. So they say, oh, yeah, but do you say aql is over naql? So you say, well, is this in the Qur'an or Sunnah? No. Oh, who told you which one to take then? Oh, our Dada Ibn Taymiyyah. Well, last time I checked, Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't God and he wasn't the Prophet. He was, however, somebody who suffered from mental health issues and albeit, still performed on many rulings greatly, but he was someone who obviously suffered throughout his life, for God's sake. Why should we be taking him to be so supreme? Yeah. All right. So let's move on. I see Saracen says, Shukran for the super chat. Much love. What are your thoughts on Turkish Sheikh Fatahullah Gulen? He has been designated a terrorist by the Turkish president, but his Jama'ah promotes peace and dialogue. I don't know too much about him. I just heard that he had set up a lot of Islamic schools, and by Islamic schools, I don't think madrasas, but more like regular schools, except with an Islamic ethos to them. And he was very influential. This is all I really know about him. I don't know much more, but inshallah, I'll read up on him. You talk about reason and the Quran being created so much, it's a valid question, bro. Sunnis believe that the Quran was created. Ash'aris believe that. Now, but I've mentioned this before. You see, what they do is they're embarrassed of it, so they hide the wording and replace it with words that the common public wouldn't understand. So they don't use the word. In fact, if you read the Ash'ari text, they will say, we refrain from saying Al-Qur'an Makhluq. The Qur'an is using this word because of the stigma associated with it. But what we will say, we will divide the Qur'an into Kalam Nafsi and Kalam Lafzi. And Kalam Nafsi is not the Arabic Qur'an. They're very clear. So Abu Bakr al-Baqalani, he clearly says that the Arabic Qur'an is Makhluq. It is muhdath, but they don't use the word Makhluq. They use the word, replace it with the word muhdath, as in generated. See, but this is it, because it got stigma, so they moved away from the wording. And even a lot of Ash'aris don't know this today. You know, they did such a good job. Even Ash'aris today are so dumb sometimes. And, you know, the Salafi da'wah is so wide, so manipulative that many people don't realize, like, they've already fallen victim to it. So even Ash'aris today don't realize that, you know, so for example, the Bukhari da'wah is so widespread that people, without even realizing it, big up Bukhari so much. Like even Hanafis, who historically never rated Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari, to be that, because most of their fiqh is opposed to Sahih Bukhari, and Imam Bukhari used to diss Imam Abu Hanifa ridiculously. So, but later Hanafis, because the kind of discourse got so drowned in this discussion, they, even without realizing it, bought into it. So similarly, because the Salafi thing is so widespread, the Aqeedah, because Salafis only talk Aqeedah, 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 Aqeedah. So you'll notice that even Sunnis now start using their rhetoric. So Sunnis will say, you know, this thing, like, for example, because the Salafis, their whole thing is essentially about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. This is what it is. Because Imam Ahmad, this is where it's alleged that it begins, you know, this anthropomorphism. Because really, the anthropomorphists of this ummah were the Hanbalis. Okay, they were people that believed God had body parts and he was this big body in the sky and this kind of morphed body. And they claim that this is what Imam Ahmad believed. And to be honest, it may be true. He may have actually believed it. I think later Sunnis were just embarrassed, so they kind of refused to acknowledge that maybe Imam Ahmad believed it, but they say the Hanbalis definitely did. So, okay, maybe he didn't believe it. I don't know, but to me, it's not impossible that he believed it. But fair enough, he may not have. But the Hanbalis are the ones that came up with this, you know, this whole thing about God and body parts and stuff like that. So today, people will say, oh, you know, Imam Ahmad was the father of Ahl Sunnah. How was Imam Ahmad the father of Ahl Sunnah? I don't know how he was the father of Ahl Sunnah. How? What made him the father of Ahl Sunnah? Genuine question. What made him the father? This is just something the Hanbalis used to say. But today it became, you see, the propaganda is so widespread that everybody says it and they don't know why they say it. Oh, Imam Ahmad was the father of Ahl Sunnah. You say, well, why? You say, why isn't Imam Malik the father of Ahl Sunnah? Why is Imam Ahmad? Say, yeah, but he got beaten up for it. You say, well, so? I mean, what? You know, like, in all honesty, he did get beat up for the Qur'an mas'ala. Is it created or not created? And he took a stance saying it's not created. And he got beat up. But according to the Hanbalis, he actually did say it was created and they let him off. I mean, sorry, according to the Mu'tazila. So Jahid and these people write that Imam Ahmad actually accepted. And that's why he wasn't killed. He was spared, not because he was some saint. You know, this is just propaganda that later Hanbali said, oh, he was some kind of saint, so they let him off. Like hell would they care about him being some saint. I mean, you need to read what they were doing. I mean, they didn't give a damn about him. He wasn't this huge person that he later on became. You see, so in his day and age, he was taken and beaten. They didn't care about who he was. He wasn't he was a very poor person. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He wasn't like Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, who were incredibly wealthy and connected. They had like huge networks of power in their day and age. Imam Ahmad and Imam Shafi'i were incredibly poor. They were like from, barely meet the subsistence level. They, like they were struggling to meet, just to rise above the poverty line. These people never had no powerful networks, neither were they feared, nor were they. I'm not trying to diss them. I mean, they did a great service in striving for Islam and learning about Islam, but they weren't these figures that they posthumously became. So Imam Ahmad in his day and age did take a stance against the caliph. And yes, so did many people. He wasn't the only person. Other people were actually killed. He wasn't killed. And his inquisition was actually very small compared to what happened to the other people. Because his inquisition takes place during Ma'mun's time, who only lives for 4 months during the inquisition. The inquisition goes on for 15 years. So Imam Ahmad gets off very lightly. And the question was, why did he get off? So this is one of the questions a lot of people ask, that why did he get off? And he says, and then he was not allowed to teach publicly. And he didn't teach, so he wasn't this kind of great defiance of authority, because when they said you better not teach, he didn't teach. He just sat at home for the rest of his life and obviously didn't teach publicly. So he wasn't this great defiant character, but he did take a stance on that. And then he was let off within weeks. He was let off the hook. And the question was, why was he let off the hook when other people were clearly not let off the hook? And they were great scholars, and some of them were killed. And the Mu'tazila say, because he just said after a couple of weeks, yeah, I say whatever you say. And they let him go. And then when he was released, when people asked him, did you say it? He just said no. But according to the Mu'tazila, he did say it. He said, yes, the Qur'an is created to please the caliph, and then got let off. And to be honest with you, this is not hard to believe, because it wouldn't be haram to do that. It's okay to save your life, even if you don't believe in something, to say that you believe in it. So, and later on, he must have just been embarrassed and not owned up to it. But the Hanbalis after him are the ones that big him up and turn him into this glorified hero. That, Imam Ahmad was the father of Ahl Sunnah, and he strives and he does this and does that. And yeah, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because how our discourse is so dominated today without even realizing. Like, we say things, we don't know the history behind them, And so what we say today, is the Qur'an created? Even many Ash'aris don't realize that actually their books say it is created. They just use a different word. And these guys have never thought about it. Remember, I told you that Dr. Right, Dr. Abdullah Hamid Ali from Zaytuna, he reached out to me last year saying that, look, Mufti, I heard you say this and this is wrong. The Ash'aris don't say this, and they never say the Qur'an is created. I said to him, Sheikh, they do. They just, I think you need to reread the text. And he said, well, I've read it 100 times and all this. And he went back and forth. And then I showed him. I said, well, you've clearly read this part, haven't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, what do you think that means? When it says that the kalam, the lafzi is muhdath, that the worded kalam of Allah, which is the Qur'an, the Arabic Qur'an, is muhdath. It is actually invented and generated. And then he just went, and the penny dropped. And this happens with many Ash'aris. They don't know, but the actual books do teach you that the Arabic Qur'an is a created Qur'an, but the original message with God was an unworded message. It did not contain words. It was like a sheer frequency, which once it enters this realm becomes created in words. I hope that makes sense. Right. All right. When is the video on Dr. Mufti Abdurrahman Saab coming? Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that. Sub. Panty lagegi, panty. Right. So read all the super chats. Let's take a look at some of the super chats, people. Explain Jesus' story in the Quran. Berserk, you're doing it. How does Allah say he was raised up? Can you explain? And Ya'juj or Ma'juj in detail. Now, I've got videos on these in great detail. You know, the Jesus one, I must have about 4 or 5 detailed clips, including some of them as debates. Just watch them. I go through it in immense detail. Watch my refutation of Sheikh Shadi al-Masri and his monkey business in misquotations. I go through all these verses. And there are some things the Quran does not highlight. How did Jesus die? It doesn't highlight that. Okay. It doesn't mean he didn't die, but then the Quran doesn't mention how Moses died. It doesn't mention how many people died. Nobody knows where Moses was buried or what happened to Moses. It didn't. You see, just because we don't know something doesn't mean that, ooh, it didn't happen. So, yeah. Right. And the Prophet, right, there's quite a few super chats. Did the Prophet order one of his scribes to be executed because he became an apostate? Islamophobes use that hadith. No, not really. So the hadith that you're speaking about is Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah. And it's not about, you see, you have to understand something. That person was not executed. But in that day and age, there were certain treaties that the people of Medina had with Mecca. And you see, we keep forgetting, and I mentioned this on so many occasions, we keep forgetting that the world then was radically different. Yeah. You have to go back to a time when there is a sense of lawlessness and tribal laws. And what Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah did is he ran away. It wasn't about him apostating. It was about the harm he caused when he went to Mecca. Because when he went back there, he was there trying to, one, fair enough, okay, he was trying to rally them to, and mocking Islam, fair enough. But he was trying to expose how they could be attacked and how they could be sabotaged because he'd lived there. So he was telling them basically all the weak points and the pressure points of Medina and the Medinan society, how to attack them. And you have to remember they were with the Battle of Ahzab and things like this. So, and luckily they didn't know the complete. They thought they knew all the pressure points, but they, you know, obviously the Muslims prepared with the trenches and stuff. So you have to remember these things in the past were dealt as, they were not just minor issues. These were grave, unconscionable, unforgivable crimes. Because you see, what you were basically saying was wipe the entire community out. And that was outlawed. And this is why it was treason. It was treason to the highest degree. So, yes, they did have laws of treason. And I've explained this in the past that that is what apostasy laws were in essence. They were treason laws. How can the story of Dhul Qarnayn not refer to a flat earth? Oh, for God's sake. Sabur, I won't say you're doing it with that, but you're doing it with the super chat. How can it not refer to a flat earth? Well, it doesn't refer to a flat earth. For the love of God, stop buying into this dumb young earth Christian narrative of a flat earth. Okay, it's stupid. It makes you look handicapped. Just, you know, have some self-dignity. It's embarrassing, honestly. It's embarrassing. Right, how should we understand the verse? that Muhammad is not father of any of your men. Surah Ahzab, some Sunnis use that to justify his descendants not being caliph. I don't know if it's used to I don't know if it's an evidence for that. وما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين. You see, this is just stating a fact that he's not the father of you, but he is the seal of the prophets. I think it could be understood just as you read it. It's not a proof that his descendants are not to rule, but generally speaking, his descendants did not rule. So, factually speaking. Quran produce a chapter is a miracle fix up. I don't even know what that question means. But thanks for the super chat anyway. Right, Mufti, the Quran is strictly speaking against the Christian Trinity, but at the same time encourages us to follow the Sunnah. Could that be interpreted similar to the Trinity, God, the Father, the Son? Encourages us to follow the Sunnah. Couldn't that be interpreted similar to the Trinity? I don't know if I'm low on sleep today or none of these things don't seem to be making. I can't seem to understand what the bloody question is. Following the Sunnah akin to the Trinity? Okay. I don't know whatever you're smoking, but chalo TK, it must be some powerful stuff. Right. The quick answer is, of course, it's not. 109. 2 to 5. Why is ma used and not man? Hira. Don't know if the Mus'haf is here. Let's see. What are you referring to? What surah are you referring to? You could just mention the name, but nay, yaar. Why make things easy? I think I am a bit exhausted today. I think that's what it is. So, I'm a bit out of it now. So, let's see. 109, did you say? Suratul Kafirun, yeah? Suratul Kafirun, people. What is Hira on about? Chalo ab dekhte hain. Why did Allah use ma? Ma. Not ma or meri ma, meaning mother. But قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد. Is that the ma? Or are you talking about the ma's in general? I don't know. Let's go with the ma, generally speaking, as in, you do not worship that which I worship. Why not man? As in, why don't we refer to Allah as man? Yeah, to be fair, that's an interesting point. We'll have to look into the balagha aspect. But ma is accurate here as well. It's absolutely accurate. You do not worship that which I worship. So this is how you wouldn't translate this as what? That which I worship. So if I said in English, you do not worship that which I worship, and if I said you do not worship who I worship, you see, I'm assuming that reason is because when we say that which, we're more specifying how we understand that entity. When I say who I worship, even though that is also valid in its meaning, but they did accept Allah. You see, it's not that they did not worship Allah. They did, but they worshipped him via worshipping these other So, you see, I assume that they would have responded that, oh, but we do worship Allah. But when you say that which I worship, as in, I'm understanding this. I mean, maybe some people would say that no, to them it doesn't make a difference. But I'm assuming that here you're kind of qualifying not just God, but how God is to be perceived. That's how I understand it. But Allahu A'lam, I could, maybe that's just my subjective understanding of this. But that's a good question. See, yeah, that's somebody really concerned about learning. Why do you call yourself Mu'tazila? Why do you do this? Abe Salo. This is real concern. Ibn Isa says, is anybody holding Mufti accountable? He always says he's done a video on a particular topic. Is anybody holding Mufti accountable? Yeah, your dad is. Abe Salo, why would you be holding me accountable? Right, so why was Bani Ali Azad, you're doing it with the super chat? Why was Bani Israel raised as an ummah and were given different laws if Allah knew He would raise a new one? Final messenger wouldn't be from them. As in, why were they given their own laws? So it's not that Bani Israel specifically. You have to remember that all people, for the most people, for the most part, had prophets. Now, who were they? Allah just says, "Lam naqsusum alayk." We did not tell you about them. So, but the Bani Israel are mentioned specifically because around the Prophet's time in Arabia, northern Arabia, southern Arabia, even to some extent in Arabia, Petria in central Arabia, which is where the Prophet would have been, the Israelites were seen as the kind of, um, like the academics of the people of Scripture. Therefore, they are highlighted quite a lot. So, if the Prophet was in China, as an example, then the Israelites probably wouldn't be highlighted as much, I'm assuming. It would be more the prophets of China would have been brought about and mentioned as examples. Hmm. Sami al Imam, you're doing it. Much love for the super chat. Who is your favorite Western philosopher? That's interesting. I mean, I like the philosophy from many people. Favorite. I don't know. There's things I like about each person that I don't see sometimes in the other. Wittgenstein, I like. He has this kind of uniqueness to him. Nietzsche, I like the challenging and um, the discourse analysis that Nietzsche brought to the table on the genealogy of morals. I mean, there's it is a tough one. Because I feel that there's so many philosophers, and I feel in some ways that Muslims have been kind of left out of philosophy recently, in recent centuries, which is a shame. Which is a shame. Right, so, alright, so we're up to scratch on that. Your questioning is manipulative, not that's at H. Raza. What is H. Raza asking? Somebody said Diogenes. Yeah, yeah. Diogenes was epic. I love that about Diogenes. His whole kind of that attitude. Yeah. Um, Hasanat is going to be on Mind Trap soon, apparently. Hasanat has reached out to me indirectly, saying he is happy to come on my Mind Trap. So I said that let's do this. Maza aega yaar. It'll be great. So I did message him saying, I mean, I don't have his details, so this is all via a middle intermediary person. So I messaged back saying, can you ask him? Yeah, let's do this. So we were meant to do this maybe last week, but then he messaged, oh, he's not feeling well, and he's gonna have to reschedule, and then so I said fine, and then I've not heard anything since. So I don't know. Maybe he has changed his mind. Uh, right. Okay. Mo Hijab trapped as a Salafi but knows it's not right. Yeah, there is part of this is I was going to, under the microscope, because I'm going to be showing a lot of. There was a clip. There was a clip also of Mohammed Hijab, but I won't be going through that today. But what I'll do is I'll cover that next week. But it's where he's doing a lecture. Sorry, where he's got a clip on YouTube, recent one, about camel urine and how, although you don't need to drink it, but which I guess is a step in the right direction away from urine. Any step away from urine is usually a good step. But then he's saying, you know, don't dare criticize it, the hadith, like, this may have some blessed wisdom in it that you are unaware of, which really is quite nonsensical. Let me see if I can find that here. So this is the clip, camel urine as medicine. Now, this, in all honesty, is camel urine is not medicine, and neither did the Prophet ever instruct people in a real sense ever to drink camel urine. Now, I will cover this in more detail next week, but what I'll do is I'll do a hadith analysis. So the hadith is transmitted by Anas in Bukhari, and it's actually this. Bukhari brings both narrations, and there's two of these. One does not even mention that, and I have highlighted that this hadith is not reliable. Secondly, if those people who took it as an understanding, they may have understood that the Prophet, they may have interpreted this. If, first of all, the chain is problematic, and I'll highlight that next week, and how this is actually muddarab, because even the other one that Bukhari brings from the same narrator does not even mention this part. It mentions milk, but doesn't mention that. And how, if those people who think, well, maybe it's a point of consideration, that this was taken as said as a to rebuke these people, not as, it was not instructive. It was almost like cursing them. That said, in a sense, like, why don't you go drink urine? In that sense. Because these were the people, you see, you have to remember that these people that came, the Prophet saw malice in them. And they were not from Medina, and they come and they take, you see, the Arabs had a custom that what they call qira, that if somebody from out of town came to your property as a guest, you had to give them 3 days of um, of this diyafa. They called it qira, of hospitality. And the first day had to be, you had to kind of go be over and beyond. But the other 2 days, you can just be casual. So the first day, because they're going to be most tired and everything from their journey, so you have to, as a tribal law of hospitality, go over and beyond in serving them. But the next 2 days, you can just be casual with them, and they have up to 3 days of stay with you. So these was part of the tribal laws, the unwritten laws that the Arabs had, and the Prophet ﷺ partook in this, and many people, they all, and there's a hadith explaining it as well. So they take up accommodation, hospitality with this old couple, and the Prophet saw, and they came to the Prophet as well, kind of moaning and complaining, and the Prophet saw that this was a rowdy bunch, and he saw malice with them. So some people may have transmitted this, if as interpreted this as the Prophet rebuking them. But this hadith is not really, this part is not reliable anyway. But still, if you were to take it, maybe in this sense, that the Prophet was kind of like not cursing them, but kind of rebuking them. Because what they go on to do is horrid beyond measure. That old couple, what they do is, not only they slaughter their livestock, they then cut off the hands and feet of this old couple, torture them, and blind them with heated rods. That's what they do. I mean, to an old couple that served them hospitality. And this is why they are then caught and they are served the same punishment under tribal law. So these are the people that they attribute this hadith to, that the Prophet said to them, why don't you drink camel's urine? This is not a medicine. That's absurd. But I will go through the chain in next week's session, inshallah. But it was interesting to see that, okay, well, what Mohammed Hijab has done is he's moved a step away by trying to say, well, okay, you don't need to do this, but this was a one-off medication. But you see, this is the problem where Mohammed Hijab is kind of stuck. Because Mohammed Hijab can't really at this stage turn his back on the Salafis. Because, you see, I don't think he feels confident enough to do it. Because if he turned his back on the Salafis, who would his audience be? You have to remember this. Who would he be preaching to? And the Salafis are a huge audience. They are a lucrative audience. They are and he comes from that background anyway. So, but since he's started to become a bit more academic, or a bit more, let's say, he started to learn more and then adopt philosophy. Now, the Salafi hate philosophy. So he's kind of found himself in a weird kind of pickle by trying to say, well, quote a lot of philosophy, and the Salafiyah are people who hate that. The other thing is he's tried to quote a lot of, like appear very intellectual by quoting science and things like this. Now, the problem with this is, you see, when you quote scientific stuff to prove absurdities, it will more often than not come back and sting you and bite you in the rear end. So even on this, he quotes something very, in a fleeting manner, saying that, did you know camel urine contains this particular ingredient which is used in certain medications? You see, now the problem here is, when you do stuff like that, what's going to happen is this, because I know for a fact that, look, Mohammed Hijab is not going to have a plethora of research in the medical world, and there's no way. I mean, he's, let alone expertise, he's not involved with the medical world, and he's not involved in medical research, and he's not going to be from that field. So he's saying something of that field that he's just come across. And because what the Saudis have done is because these camel urine drinking Bedouins are so obsessed with the camel urine that they've actually injected a bit of money into their universities to offer free research to people, like do a PhD on proving the benefits of camel urine. So people have kind of done some theses because obviously they're gonna, but this kind of research does not make it medically accepted. So is it in a renowned medical journal, or is it just a PhD or a master's thesis that somebody in the University of King Saud has done in Riyadh or something, or Malik ibn Abdul Aziz or whatever it is in these universities in Saudi Arabia? That doesn't mean anything, you see. So what these people are doing is quoting something medical. Now all it's going to take is some person who does know, they are clued up with WebMD and other kind of medical journals, and that's their forte, that they are going to bring this up, smash it to smithereens, and thereby destroy the perception of the Prophet that you're presenting. See, and that's the problem. And this has happened on so many occasions. This has happened with this is what Mohammed Hijab or Aira used to do this. Now I think Hamza Tsortis has stopped doing this, but he used to do this a lot. Quote, like this is the medical thing for it. But unless you are actively studying medical research, it's really difficult going out on a limb and trying to prove a controversial point through it, because what's going to happen is somebody's just going to come back and smash you with it. And that's what happened with many of his things. People came back saying, oh, well, you actually cocked up here and you cocked up there quoting this, and you cocked up here quoting this embryological fact, and you messed up here quoting this. And this is why, even I know Muslims don't really see it, but really his debate with Lawrence Krauss was, it's just because it was done in a Muslim thing and the Muslim audience kept cheering for Hamza Tsortis. Otherwise, that debate was a poor attempt, in all honesty. You can't, people like Professor Lawrence Krauss and these people are in another league when it comes to quantum research and things like that. These Muslim kind of polemicists don't even understand that stuff, let alone try and take it down. It's a different arena, man. So yeah, cool. Let's move on, people. Could you get Dr. Jefrey Lang on Mindtrap? Sure, if he's happy to come. What I say to people is, if you know anybody that you think may be great to get onto Mindtrap, if you're in touch with them, always ask them. My two key validating factors are they must be interesting and interested in coming on. If so, reach out to them. If they are, yep, let's make this happen. When you get a chance, can you talk about Islam being spread through violence? Islam was not spread through violence. Right, so it's simply not true. You see, Islam is not a faith of pacifism. It's not a faith of, we don't take up arms and things like this. It does have a military aspect to it. It has had empire. It has had these things. So it's not something that, will say, oh, if you come meet me with a sword, what I'm going to do is turn the other cheek. No, Islam would actually, in fact, it's had a very powerful, highly inspiring, with such zeal, it's had a reply and a counter response to being met with force, which shows how Islam spread in the early century. And not, you see, now here when I say it spread not by force but by zeal, Because, this thing that Islam was spread by the sword, it's absurd. Because how would you maintain Islam by the sword? How? How would you do it? Like, tell me, 300 years of colonial rule couldn't do it. You couldn't convert the people to being Christians. Maybe a handful of Christians here or there, but you couldn't convert. India didn't become Christian, despite, the most full throttle effect and efforts of the British Empire. It doesn't, converting people to religion is only something you can do at best there and then. Like I say, become this. You say, oh, okay. And then how do you police that? How do you police their children in the future becoming that? The only forceful attempt of this to some extent that has been so malignantly successful in history, and that too, it wasn't for such a long period, but it was the Spanish Inquisition. And that too, so much effort went into, but it was a small concentrated region. That's in southern Spain. And then obviously in South America, they did that as well. So, but bar that, it's very difficult finding in history these parallels where you can just convert by force so easily and they stay upon it. And it certainly did not happen with Islam. And Sheikh Yasir Qadi was wrong when he somehow felt he was, accepting, trying to have a moment of transparency and say, yes, Islam was spread like this. It's like, no, it wasn't. But anyway, cool. That's all the super chats. I've been through them. I can see them here. Mufti, can you do a video analysis on the real God and Epiphany? He's an atheist called Dark Matter who makes a strong argument. I'll have to watch that. I haven't watched it. I don't know what that's about. I honestly don't believe the atheist argument is a strong argument. Honestly don't. No. Okay, let me get this right. I believe they have strong arguments on many things, but overall, it all collapses when it comes face to face with consciousness. All of their arguments collapse. And they're just left with, fine, we won't believe. It's not, they're left with just a blind faith once again because how do you explain consciousness? The mind being able to have ideas. How do you explain this? And you can't seem to explain it. Where does it even exist? How do you explain the quantum world? See, this is why atheists are still... Atheism works at a Newtonian level. Ironically, that's where a lot of institutionalized religion works as well. friend. Beyond, you see, once you go into the quantum world, a lot of institutionalized religion collapses or it gets lost and confused. And atheism seems to be confused as hell as well, because they can't even understand. Because you see, the quantum, this thing has changed the game. It's just people don't understand this stuff. That's the problem. I have had Dr. Professor Mir Faisal on on a few of my mind traps. Amazing, one of the leading quantum physicists in the world today, and one of the key experts on quantum gravity. A huge, like a pioneer on it worldwide, who is a director in Canada of for the center researching quantum gravity. He's got, I believe, 150 world acclaimed articles on quantum physics and especially quantum gravity. he has challenged many professors, including, I mentioned before, Professor Lawrence Krauss, to a debate on God. And Professor Lawrence Krauss declined. You know why they declined? Because it's, because they are in a league of their own, because they're so clued up on this stuff and regular people ain't. But if you meet somebody that's so clued up in quantum physics and quantum gravity, you just can't get around that, and it will make your arguments look silly. But it's just that the public don't understand quantum physics. So to them, they're still operating at a Newtonian level. So they still see the world how Newton explained it. So to them, they say, oh, but God, but he doesn't exist. We can't see him. Oh, we can't do. We're in the quantum world today. That physics has been updated. These arguments are very difficult to stand. So atheism only works against institutionalized religion, because institutionalized religion also operates at a Newtonian level. But if you're going to operate in the 21st century, and you're going to bring consciousness into it as well, oof, zalim. Atheism doesn't stand a chance, because it just ends up being the same as institutionalized religion. It just ends up having blind faith in just saying, well, okay, we don't know, but it doesn't have an answer. It ends up being answerless. The Qur'an does refer to them as chosen, implying there's something special about that ummah in particular. I thought after Abraham, prophets would be only from his line. You see, it doesn't say in the Qur'an that prophets were only from Abraham's line. It doesn't say that anyway in the Qur'an. And that would not have been the case. But it says that Allah says, look, we have favored Bani Israel. But yes, they may have been favored in certain things, and other people may have been favored in other certain things. So when the Qur'an is addressing Bani Israel with Arabia in mind, yes, they may have been favored with all these prophets and Moses and the whole thing, and being a nation that have really withstood such vicissitudes of life and fate. But does that mean no other people were favored? No, it doesn't mean that. Other people may have been favored differently. So these things are relative. Rami, you're doing it, Rami. All right. When you get a chance, I've already answered that. Sam Teller, it also doesn't make sense that the whole countries would throw away their cultures and tradition for this foreign religion. Exactly, they wouldn't, and that's absolutely correct. Rami, you're doing it. Salam Mufti, is there a reason outside of Hadith why the figure at the lote tree was determined to be Gabriel and not a theophany? Rather. The figure at the lote tree, Sidratul Muntaha. This kind of language is all really symbolic. There's nothing, it's just symbolism. There is no tree, people. I remember a couple of years ago when Mohammed Hijab had come to have a dialogue. Can't remember how we ended up on that point, but he mentioned the lote tree at Sidratul Muntaha. So I asked him, I said, what is the Sidratul Muntaha? He said, it's this tree, Sidra tree. I said, at the end of creation. And he said, yeah. And I said, so what does this tree do there? And, there was this, what? And all of them, Ali Da'wa and all, they were like, I was like, so what does this tree do at the end of creation? So there's like nothing and there's a tree. Sometimes it's just that we've not been asking the right questions. People, the truth is often hidden in plain sight. Remember that. How did the Maliki madhab move from the fiqh of Central Arabia to the fiqh of North Africa? The Maliki madhab had spread in Imam Malik's lifetime all the way to the Iberian Peninsula, which was Spain. It went through via North Africa, but it also spread into the Middle East, into Iraq. There were many major Malikis in Iraq. Basra was actually heavily Maliki, as in not heavily Maliki, but it had a strong Maliki representation. Not so much Kufa, but Basra, and Baghdad did as well, but Basra especially. So many of these Malikis are from Basra. You know, like you'll get, ow, ow. So you'll get a lot of these. Abu Bakr al-Abhari would have been there. You'll get a lot of these. Ibn al-Jallab. These are all associated with Basra. Ibn al-Warraq. You're gonna get just tons of them, Laythi, but so these all, not Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, Abu al-Faraj al-Laythi, and you'll get a lot of these that will move back and forth. Muhammad Ibn Khwayz Mandad, and they will move between Baghdad and Basra sometimes, but there was a strong representation. Yeah. Mufti, is it true in Imam Malik's Muwatta that playing chess is haram? I thought chess was introduced to the Muslim world after the conquest of Persia. No, playing chess is not haram. Yeah, chess wasn't there in the time of the Prophet, not amongst the immediate Arabs. So I'm not saying it wasn't there in the world, but in the Prophet's society, people didn't play chess. But in the time of the companions, it was introduced. So there's a lot of discussions that the companions have over chess, some in favor, some against, but it's not haram. There are some fatwa in the Muwafaqat of Shatibi, Imam Shatibi. He goes through Imam Malik's fatwa on chess and things, and why Imam Malik disliked these kind of things. You see, because he saw people just wasting their lives in it. And obviously, this was not, he never said it's haram, but he kind of like rebuked it. But that was his personality. It's like today people watching TV series or, playing computer games or doing these things are not haram, but some people, it's not from their temperament to, they kind of see this as, why are you wasting your life? So that's how Imam Malik was. Right, so let's take a look, people. I brought up some other clips. Right,
What
this
are the
is
limits for ear?
We've got Mufti Abdurrahman ibn Yusuf al-Manghera speaking, people, on piercing ear piercings. Ear piercings, people. Ear piercings. Nutties. Haram.
No, keep teasing me.
Wait, people.
What are the limits for ear piercing? Can you pierce the top of your ear, or is it just the bottom? And what is the reason for not piercing any other part of the body? For example, the ears and the nose, etc. It's permissible to pierce any part of the body that is considered to be acceptable among decent people as
your decency. People, some of you have just noticed I've also figured out how to use the stop button on this. Maza aega, maza. I just figured this out today. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. We learn, people, we live, we learn. So we are seeing the amazing Sheikh pouring the gems and anything that people seem decent. Decent this one. What the decent? Let's hear, people. Let's hear.
as a source of adornment for women.
Sorry, teasing you, people. I now know the function. I know the function.
So, for example,
Abe, pay attention, people. Mufti Saab is saying.
example, if you are piercing the ears, which means that if you're piercing 1 or 2 at the bottom, that's considered to be
You're piercing the bottom, the ear bottom. Salos, listen properly to Mufti Saab.
quite normal. 1 or 2,
Quite normal.
2 is kind of acceptable to a certain degrrie. But to pierce up and above, then that gets a bit abnormal for most.
Mufti Saab. So 1 or 2 is normal, and you pierce above, it becomes abnormal. Cha. I love to see who's defining normality here. Kaun sa chacha hai? Whose chacha is sitting there saying that's abnormal?
Most people don't do that, right? So that would become problematic. Likewise,
Acha. And we're thinking things like colon cancer is problematic. Mufti Saab.
piercing the nose is fine.
It's fine. Fine, this one, people, fine.
Because again, you have many Muslim cultures which allow that and it's considered to be quite normal and not indecent.
It's not Isn't indecent usually to do with being nude? I mean, I don't know what it's not indecent, people. It's not indecent.
The reason why it's not permissible to go around piercing every part of your body is because that's...
Why, Mufti Saab? Zara bataiye na.
manipulating your body in a...
manipulating. Yaar, ab samjhe na hi hai. Let me, un momento. Let's hear that again, Mufti Saab.
manipulating your body.
Manipulating your body. Acha. बहुत सुंदर शब्द हैं. Let's see what he's saying.
In a sense, and there's no muthla in Islam. Muthla means there's no, there is no mutilation of any part of your body to make a hole through it, etc. So that's one of the reasons for it.
Oh, that's one of the reasons for it. Oh, so people, as you heard right there, the wise words of Mufti Mangera Saab that you all enjoyed. So let me just clarify what Mufti Saab was saying. You see, the problem with having, you can have one piercing, it's normal. You can have two, it's normal. Why is it normal? Because decent people say it's normal. Sharifo. Sharif people. Shurafa. Sharif. Badtamiz people, like you haramis watching this. Badtamizo. That's why I pierced it underneath. Samjha karo, haramio. Mufti Saab is saying, if you pierce on top, it becomes abnormal. But why, Mufti Saab? Why does it become abnormal? Abhe, ruko. Right, just hold your horses, people. I'm going to explain. The wisdom is because you're manipulating. What the hell does manipulating here mean? I don't know whether it's the lack of caffeine today, yaar. समझ में ना आती है बिल्कुल भी ये बातें. What does manipulating your body mean? So you're manipulating your body. ठीक है. Right, so, look at that magic there, going a bit. Then, Mufti Saab goes on to explain that the other wisdom is because we're not allowed to do muthla in Islam. Muthla, for those of you that don't know, means to, what it's really used for is to disfigure, to distort and disfigure someone, especially to the dead after they've been killed. What they would do, the ancient Arabs would kind of disfigure them. So they'd do things like, I don't know, maybe cut their tongue out and, like maybe kind of do all weird stuff with their body parts, cut it off and hang it around. And, a bit like, I suppose you get some of these cartels in the Colombian necktie. which is not a tie you want to be wearing, So this kind of stuff is muthla. So because muthla is haram, muthla is haram, अच्छी बात है, सुंदर बात है. This one is beautiful speech, mashallah. But then because muthla is haram, you're not allowed to pierce the upper part of the ear or body parts. Abe sasure, if you can do muthla here, then why can't you do it here? Ya Mufti Saab. You see, this is the problem. This is why the ummah is where it is. But I saw that and I thought, well, I have to share that now since it's so.
What are the limits for
right,
ear piercing?
now,
Can you?
There's also another one, people. Moving on to the next microscope. It just keeps getting, the universe keeps giving, people. The universe keeps giving. So,
What are the?
Right now,
And
if I
we
can.
have Aftab from India.
Sheikh, my question is that I have a very close non-Muslim friend, and whenever we met, he always used to say Assalamu alaikum. He is suffering from cancer, and it's not like that after knowing that he is suffering from cancer, he wants to change and he wants to accept Islam. So I want to know, can I answer his salam? Or in general speaking, can I answer salam of non-Muslim?
Okay.
Can I make dua in my sujood or in my salah for him that may Allah grant him cure from cancer?
Okay, I will answer inshallah.
Pay attention, logo, Sheikh Assim, Al-Hakim, the wise, is about to part his wisdom. Siko, ta'allamu, learn, right? This is wisdom coming all the way, Bedouin wisdom. Pour out, kind of tsunami of wisdom is coming your way, people.
Aftab from India. He says that he has a very dear friend of his who's a non-Muslim.
Abe, ruko, Sheikh Saab. Espérame. Un momento. I've got to. Yaar, wuzu karke aaye. Yaar, we should do wudu for listening to such wisdom, but chalo.
And this is an issue you should look into, Aftab. You can't have dear friends who are non-Muslims.
Huh?
Because, yeah, you can have an acquaintance, a colleague at work, but not a dear friend whom you hang out with and you use him as a confidant, you tell him your secrets and you take his counseling. No, this is not recommended. So he says that he's sick and he's not sure whether he's interested in Islam or not. However, every time he meets him, he says to Aftab, Assalamu alaikum. Should I reply to his salam? The answer is no. Any non-Muslim who says Assalamu alaikum clear and loud, you simply reply with a smile, wa alaikum. That's it. And you don't complete, you don't continue. Because this is the way of the Prophet alayhi as-salatu wasalam. This is the most authentic opinion. And we have Aqib from India.
You heard that, people. The wisdom right there pouring forth, that it knocked my version. See, this is the problem, people. You know, when you get these Bedouins. Ya Asim al-Hakim, the wise. That's such an oxymoron that his parents decided to give him the name Hakim and Allah decided to give him no hikmah. That's just like a cruel joke. That's just cruel, don't you think so? That's just like, So it's a shame, really. It's a shame. But here he is, sharing any little ounce of wisdom that he can find in the desert amongst the camels that he. So he said, people, first of all, Abe Haramio, how can you even have a non-Muslim friend? Explain me this one. How is possible? No es posible. You're Muslim. How can you have a non-Muslim? Yeah, you can have an acquaintance. You can have a colleague. How can you have a friend? Friend. Kafir. Wallahi, this is the type of ignorance, people. This is the hatred and the venom, the cancer, the radioactive toxicity that is being spewed. This is why the deen suffers. Because people, they have to learn this kind of stuff and think, acha, that's what my Islam is about then. I'm not even allowed to have these friends. I should be weary. I should be this, should be that. It's nonsense. It is really a tragedy, to be honest. But it is what it is. And right, let's should we bring up the next one, people? Let's bring up the next one. Yaar, kuch मामला गर्म हो रहा है. It's, do you guys feel the calor, the heat? All right, people, let's see. So, what else is there? Un momentico. So, this was Abdurrahman Hassan.
The first
right,
Khariji was who? The first Khariji was who? The first Khariji who came out with the Prophet, he said to the Prophet, "I'dil fa innaka lam ta'dil." Who was the first Khariji? The head of the Khawarij. Dhu Khuwaisira did not take a sword. He said to the Prophet, "Be just." He went against the Prophet by statement. "I'dil Muhammad fa innaka lam ta'dil." He's the first person who brought the mentality of protesting, uprising against the leader, mentioning your opinion. The first person who said that.
Now, here, un momentico, mi gente. So here, Ustad Abdurrahman Hassan is educating the Ummah. Ummah always needs to be educated. Yaar, you know, this is why, yaar, inki, you know, the kind of sincerity I see in their hearts. Yaar, I melt in front of it. Melt like ice cream on a hot summer's day. Dil karta hai. I feel like I need to really sit here in a, you know, like in a state of like salah, like I'm praying nafal, like listening to this wisdom. Not, of course. So here, Sheikh Ustad Abdurrahman Hassan, in trying to support why we should never criticize. No. Never criticize who people. The something is like, are we talking about Allah? Criticize, should never criticize people who make false claims against the Prophet. We should never criticize the Saudi king. Never criticize the Saudi king. You shouldn't even speak out against rulers. And in fact, the first Khawarij, the real extremists in Islam, were in the time of the Prophet. He, according to Ustad's claim, Dhul Khuwaisir, as you've heard, and protesting was that sign of rebellion, borderline kufr. So let's hear that part again, man. Brothers, please, brothers, listen carefully.
Mentioning your opinion. The first person who said that from this ummah, who the Prophet said, "I will kill his lineage."
Now,
I will kill his lineage is who? protesting, uprising against the
Protesting.
leader.
Look.
اعدل محمد فإنك لم تعدل. He's the first person who brought the mentality of protesting.
Protesting.
Uprising against the leader, mentioning your opinion. The first person who said that from this ummah, who the Prophet said, I will kill his
Prophet
lineage.
said?
I will kill his lineage is who? It was
Yeah.
who? From this ummah, who the Prophet said, I will kill his lineage.
The
I will
Prophet
kill his
said,
lineage
I
is
will
who?
kill his lineage.
It was who?
So according to him, the Prophet
He
said,
said that from this ummah, who the Prophet said, I will kill his lineage. I will kill his lineage is who?
right, so people, here, Ustad ji, Ustad, लेते हैं हम तुम्हारी क्लास. Ayo, ayo. Ustad is trying to teach us to cement the throne of MBA. Sorry. How to preserve our iman. How to, like how you go into ruku, how to kind of gusado, like Browning, you cha. Samjha karo. He's teaching us how to really help our beloved MBS. All right, so in Saudi Arabia, and never criticize the Saudi kings. God forbid. Tawbatan nasuha. Tawbatan nasuha. ये गलती क्षमा कीजिए प्रभु. Papi संसार है, papi दुनिया है. We sometimes make these mistakes, So, brother, we are being taught not to ever criticize or publicly voice your opinion against them. This is Toba, this is kufr. So whilst Ustad Abdurrahman, in the zeal of Iman, defending the royalty, ho jata hai, blood boils sometimes, MBS, where are you? Yaar, where are you? Sar gusa diya. He's got his, some people, they have their head so far up somebody's derriere. So in this moment of passion and zeal, what Ustad Abdurrahman Hassan got so carried away, he accidentally just threw the Prophet under the bus. Huh? Ho jata hai yaar. It happened, brother. It happened, this one. No problem. This one sometimes happen in zeal, So he said, he's trying to speak of the first Khawarij. So he gives an example. He says in this example, there's a hadith. And
the first
I will
Khariji
show
was
you
who?
the hadith, this one.
The first Khariji who came out.
So
with the
he's
Prophet,
saying
said to
there
Prophet,
in the
"I'dil
background, and
فإنك
this is the
تعدل."
hadith.
Who was the
It's
first
in
Khariji
Sahih
ahead of the Khawarij?
Bukhari that he says to the
Do
Prophet,
Qaisara.
be
Do Qaisara,
just.
do not take a sword.
And the Prophet says,
He
who
said to
will
the
be
Prophet,
just
"Be
if
just."
I am not
He went
just?
against the Prophet by saying,
And then Umar says, let me,
"I'dil Muhammad
Umar
فإنك
wanted to
لم
have
تعدل." He's
be
the first
unleashed on
person
him.
who
And the
brought
Prophet
the
said, no,
mentality of protesting,
that there will be an
uprising against the
offspring
leader.
from him that are extremists and so on. And the Prophet explains this. However,
The first Khariji was who? The first Khariji was who?
Dhul Khuwaysira.
The first Khariji who came out with the Prophet, he said to the Prophet, "i'dil فإنك لم تعدل."
So you can see
Who is the
here,
first Khariji? The head
in
of the
this
Khawarij.
getting carried away, he goes on
Do
to say,
Khuwaysira. The first person who said that from this ummah, who the Prophet said, I will kill his lineage.
I will
kill his lineage is who?
I will kill his
Who?
lineage. This is, who's saying this, people? This is the Prophet is saying this to, the Prophet is saying this, that I will kill his lineage. I mean, is this is this something that King Mohammed bin Salman knows about? Special hadith? Special sanad? Because nobody in Islam seems to know about this, that the Prophet ever said, I will kill his lineage. Why would the Prophet say, I'll kill his lineage, but stop people from killing him? Umar said that, let me take out my sword, and the Prophet said, La. It's in Bukhari, that's the same hadith. And the Prophet said that there will be from his generations to come people who are extremists and the deen does not really enter their hearts, but they will outwardly do much more worship than, a regular Muslim will do. Did the Prophet allow somebody to attack him? No. Prophet stopped Umar, said, La, don't. Why would the Prophet say, don't kill him, but his children that will come, kill them? Where does the Prophet say this? What is the kahora? Na. When we're cementing the thrones of the Saudi kings, Saudi, right? I know the rialat. This one, very nice, very nice, brother. This one, friend. But no throw Prophet under bus, this one, please to stop, please. This one, not nice. I can't believe, the passion that people get so carried away that they just throw the Prophet under the bus. It's like, yeah, do we want to calm down and pull our heads out of the derriere and just think, yeah, this is the Prophet of Islam. What am I saying? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Let's have some respect towards the Prophet first and foremost, then other people. Kings can wait till the end. Kings have got their own lavish lifestyles. They don't need us. MBS is living the life. He don't need you or somebody to praise him and speak in his defense. But yeah, so this is the problem, people. Right? So, and I did, by the way, people might say, I did reach out to...
the first Khariji was who?
Sorry, that's in the background. We've got still... This must be part of my... But you can see here,
the head of the Khariji.
I have... One moment, Tico, I'll just stop that.
Did not take a sword.
Right, so this is my message. I did tweet it to... Just let you guys have a quick read. To Abdurrahman Hassan, saying that how about I invite him onto Mindtrap to have a discussion on Aqidah. Aqidah. So I did say that, look, that you can defend the Salafi Aqidah, but only from the Qur'an was Sunnah. And my challenge is that you won't be able to. Okay? But see, look, much love. See, I always end things with love, people. Love. This one, all about love. I did also say this part as well. What? This one. That's better. I did also say that I'm happy to have a discussion on Bukhari Gate if you want, but, let's be honest, that's a difficult topic, and I don't want to be, I don't want to just pick on people and then they say, it's not fair because, Mufti, we don't have the research. So, people, but I gave him that offer as well. So, yeah, and why? Obviously, why else, people? So, right? So, why else? قد تبين الرشد من الغي. Allah. Because guidance has been set apart from misguidance. So I did, and I offer that challenge to any Salafi Imam on their Aqidah. That we can have a discussion. They have to be able to prove their Aqidah just from the Qur'an or Sunnah. And my challenge is that they won't be able to. So anybody can take that up. It is open. including the beloveds, including Ganguteli and Co., the Three Stooges, including Snow White from last week. I saw Snow White had done another episode, but I'll have to come back to that in another Monday night. I was like, "What? Snow White? Gee, Peer, you're teasing, right?" So, people, what is going on? I'll tell you what. Let's take a few quick questions, then we'll cover Sheikh Asrar, our beloved, and then we'll wrap this up, people. So, what is going on? Well, somebody said you should stop these people who are obsessed with jinns. That's true. That's why for backup you should have people like this. Sheikh Saab sitting right there, all prepped with with a space gun. Oh, you can. Oh, you can. Hadouken. I'll never be able to get over that. Yeah, space gun. So what is going on, people? Talking in the Salam Mufti is talking in the bathroom haram. You. Who are you talking to in the bath? You're talking to Acha. Dialogue. Very advanced, so yeah. Some people just play, but you engage in meaningful dialogue. So what is the meaning of meaning? What? Advanced slogan. This is, see, the generation is ahead of its time, people. It's ahead of its time. Us people, we've been left behind like dinosaurs. We can never catch up with these people philosophizing, discussing the depths of philosophy. You're doing it, people. Mufti, can you get Harun Yahya on Mind Trap, please? Oh yeah, I would have loved to before he was handed his 1,000-year sentence. The Turkish judge that handed that must have been like somebody, I don't know what era he was living in. He's like, yeah, sounds about right. 935 years. He must have just like asked it. You know what must have happened? That judge must have been in a rush, and he must have just said to like his 6-year-old that, what do you think I should say? 6-year-old's like, 935 years? Okay, 935 years. God damn. Right, so I see Saracen has super chatted. You're doing it. What are your views on Naqshibandi Sufi Jamaats? I personally find them a bit out of it, like the Salafis, arrogant and a bit militant. Yeah, you see, a lot of the Sufic orders that you find are unfortunately very institutionalized. So they're meant to be about, you see, the irony is they're meant to be about defying institutionalization, and being like challenging that kind of dogma and being able to practice out of the box, because mysticism was very out of the box. But what they've just become is the very monster that they originally had set out to defy. You know, it's that same thing that Nietzsche said, you know, when you stare into the abyss stares right back into you. And beware when you fight monsters, lest you become a monster. And that's exactly what's happened with these institutions. Why did Imam Ahmad and Imam Ja'far hate Abu Hanifa? I'm not sure that they did like that, but I mean, Imam Ahmad, yeah, did say a few harsh things about Abu Hanifa. He said quite a few harsh things. If you read them, it's like, huh? Whoa, okay. He said quite a few. Another day, I'll go through them. Mufti Saab, thoughts on Sheikh Dadu Syanqithi? Yeah, I had a liking or a soft spot for Sheikh Dadu. But to be honest, I haven't seen much of him or heard much of him in the last maybe 2 years, 3 years. I haven't really seen. There was a time I was seeing a lot of him on social media. And at that time, I even reached out to him and connected. And he was responsive. He would respond with some messages and WhatsApp. And then I don't know, I didn't see him on social media anymore. Maybe it's been about 2-3 years. I haven't really seen his activity. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the algorithms, but I haven't really seen him being that active. But he has some very interesting fatwa. He does have. See, it's strange because in some things he is quite critical. In some things he's still dogmatic. Yeah. I think it's good to take the critical things from him. And, in the dogmatic things, we should still be a bit open-minded. Max, you're doing it with the super chat. Much love, much love. Muftis, please speak about love and proof of affection. Also, protection given by Raja Dahir. Raja Dahir to the always prosecuted Prophet's descendants on Iran. I don't know. I don't know if people are doing this on purpose or are they... am I just... Maybe I'm just tired today. I don't know. I can't seem to understand what people are asking. Does that make sense to other people, or is it just me? Speak about love and the proof of affection. Now, to be honest, I don't even... Speak about love, I understand. Proof of affection, I don't understand what that even means. Speak about the proof of affection. As in, where does it say in Islam you should show affection? That's an easy one. I mean, إنما يأمركم بالعدل والإحسان. This comes in ihsan. There's so many ahadith about shafaqa, about showing shafaqa, which is compassion, affection. I don't know. I mean, there's so much. I mean, if you just Google, compassion in Islam, rahma, it comes up in so many hadith. There's countless hadith about it. Also, protection given by Raja Dahir. Raja Dahir to the always prosecuted Prophet's descendants on Iran. Either I'm drunk or people are drunk. I don't know. Kuch to hai yaar. It's one or the other. But I tried. Lord knows I tried, Maxi. You're doing it. Right, so somebody says you missed a super chat about Jefrey Lang. No, I didn't. I read that out. I said that, look, sure, if he's interested, hook me up, man. Hook me up. Speak to a therapist. Sure, will do. Right. Mufti, thoughts on the formation of Sunni schools of law by Christopher Melchert. I'll have to look into that. I thought he was talking about condom protection. Oh, is he? Oh, are you asking about protection? Oh, yeah, that's, you know what? That's my fault. I should have been on it straight away. You know, when you say, I've come with protection, it's like, acha, ha, nahi yaar, oh, what, in active mode, activated, oh, so you want proof. Nowadays, it's not enough just to have the protection, but you got to have proof. You got to carry the label. What kind of questions are coming through today, people? I don't know what's going on, man. It's so... All right, so... doesn't Abdul Basit to earth, you infer that, hence scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim said that the story was entirely on earth to begin with. Oh, I take it you're speaking about the story of Adam. Yes, many ulama felt this is on earth, which obviously it was. You know, it was obviously on earth. They weren't kind of beamed down. But some people felt, oh, maybe they were in a different universe. Not in heaven, because heaven is the afterlife. But they felt that maybe they were in a different universe and then but really they were just on earth. Thoughts on Ibadism? Yeah, you know, Ibadis are interesting. I mean, you see, Ibadis do help form a kind of triangulation method, if we want, in Islam, because they are very early. And the way you've got Sunnis mainstream and you've got Shia, but there was another splint that was Ibadis, which were from the Khawarij, which were the extremists. But you know, the Khawarij did have they were like a spectrum. Not everybody was butchering people, but many of them were, but not they had a lot of splinter factions. And it happens with any kind of nutcase groups that they then start fighting amongst themselves. And hence it happened with the Khawarij as well. So you had like the Azariqa and you had other people and you had the Ibadis. Now, you know, there's its roots are with this person called Abdullah ibn Ibad. And he's quite early, actually. So from the time of Bani Umayyah. And they also trace it back to Jabir ibn Zayd as well. The companion. Oh, sorry, the student of the companions. Although, I don't know if some claim he falls under a companion as well. But they trace it back to Jabir ibn Zayd as well. So this group of Khawarij seem to be the less nutcase type. And over time, they developed and started to have their own fiqh. And then they've got like their own fatwa. They were very keen on people trying to learn their own fiqh and develop their own rulings as they go along. They also did believe in hadith, but they believed in hadith that came, I believe, mainly through Jabir ibn Zayd and stuff like that. So they only have a very small collection, which their book is also called Al-Jami' al-Sahih something, but it comes much later. I think it comes about 300 plus years later on. So after like Sahih Bukhari and stuff. But they also call it the Jami' al-Sahih. I've forgotten what their full name is now. But, and they do have certain peculiar practices. Like they also pray with the arms to the side like the Malikiya do. And they seem to have continued that practice. But as time went by, they did remove themselves from that extremist kind of manifesto. So they stopped, because you see, maybe that's just adaptation. because in the early days, in the time of Bani Umayyah, they were in North Africa. Yeah. Those of you that have watched my Andalus stories, my Andalus history, or even heard my lecture on Abdurrahman ibn Muawiyah, uh, who kind of escapes and the Abbasids, and then he goes to Africa and goes to what is like modern day Libya, but he avoids North Africa because there were the Khawarij, and the Khawarij were also after the Umayyads to execute them. So they weren't at that stage a peaceful people. But then over North Africa, they get kind of crushed. So in time, what happens is they seem to have remained an entity in, I think, around the Bahrain region and Oman. And today they are in Oman. That's where they still are. So Oman is it is an Ibadi state. So they have rulers, and and who is it that passed away recently? Sultan Qaboos. He was really praised by people. But in time, because they became an extreme minority, it was important for them that they're not extreme. Because if you're extreme, you will be crushed and annihilated by the majority. So they became very kind of coexisting and all about peace, and not all about, but all about coexistence. And they are quite seen as peaceful. So that's a brief history, but I would love to learn more about them in depth. I have tried to look out for an Ibadi Sheikh, if I could find one, and maybe, get a dialogue. It'd be awesome to get an Ibadi Sheikh on Mindtrap. You see, what is interesting, and I've spoken about this on the Petra question, the Makkah question, that was this Makkah just a Bani Umayyah invention? And I've highlighted that would have been impossible because, you see, it's not just the Sunnis. The Shia were anti-Bani Umayyah, and the Ibadis were anti-Bani Umayyah. There's no way that these three traditions, which have continued till today, would agree to replace Mecca with a different city and replace the Hajj with a different location. And they would all agree on it. That's impossible. So this triangulation method is good in ascertaining certain, when we want to corroborate certain evidence. Cool. Right. How is it? Right. Some super chats. Is praying in a car allowed? Either because of a particular job or not feeling safe praying in a parking lot. Worst case, if you need to pray in a car, if you're not feeling safe or things like that, you can, inshallah. How is it fair that kids are not held accountable when they cause lifelong harm to other kids? Bullying. Much love from New Zealand. Experiments has super chatted. Much love to you. Take care. Stay blessed. You're doing it, man. Yeah, it is cruel. And it's not that kids are not accountable. They are. But you see, so when people say kids are not accountable, that's not what they mean that they have free reign. So if a kid went and stabbed another kid, they would be accountable. And you have this, and Imam Malik's fatwa of Shahadatul Sibyan is all about this, that when children give testimony regarding other children, this is why Imam Malik accepted it, because if a child has wounded another child, so they are accountable, but obviously it's commensurate to the child. So you have to take into consideration what's happened. You have to take into consideration what they understood, what they were doing. But there are still laws. They would still be accountable in their own way. You understand? So naturally, the laws pertaining to children would be more relaxed and less stringent than they would to adults. But there are still laws. It doesn't mean that, if a 10-year-old took a gun and just went around shooting everybody dead, it doesn't mean, it's, he gets a free, I don't know, and gets a free ticket. It doesn't work like that. And bullying, and you're right that the worst bullying is from children to children. That is true, actually, and it is a very sad state of affairs. May Allah make things easy for people. Ehsanullah Kushkaki, you're doing it, man. Much love. Just showing some love, Mufti. Gotta put Lil Man to bed. Please take a moment to make dua for our ummah, humanity, and the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One love. You're doing it, man. You're doing it. So absolutely, may Allah bless each and all. Ameen. Mufti, when a qadi in a criminal matter hands down judgment, e.g. theft, does he give maximum punishment or does he hand out less? You see, I've already spoken about that the hudud would have changed. So do watch my video on that, on hudud changing and trajectory hermeneutics. I've got about 2-3 videos. And yes, the hudud would be different. And yes, he would take into consideration the circumstances. It would be not different from how the courts work, let's say, in England today. That would be how the Sharia would work. I mean, more or less. I mean, certain things may be tweaked here and there, but that's how it would be. You would have, the Sharia is just about using the systems that human societies have and in regulating those societies. So today you would have, social workers involved, if they are involved, or probation workers, probation officers that would be giving reports. You would have the judges would look at testimonials. They would listen to circumstantial evidence. Also take into consideration the backdrop to why this happened, and then they would rule. So that's fine. That is Islamic. All right, people. All right. Let's, I think we've had quite a bit. Let's move on, people. Let's move on. So, time has come, people. Our beloved.
Let me add a little bit of spice.
So, people, our beloved, right, Sheikh Asrar. I want to share a little of his lecture. He did a lecture on cannabis, marijuana, just naturally saying it's haram, but let's go through a bit of it and then speaking about DMT as well. And as you can imagine,
some people quote the statement of Imam Abu Hanifa to validate a deviant interpretation. They say Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala permitted nabidh in small amounts.
Right, so pause there, my beloved, pause. So, what is yaar ho kya raha hai? Ow. Right, so let me just check a little stunt whilst I'm doing this. If I was to do this, and then do this, and then bring this back, would it be where I left it? Let me see. You're teasing me, huh? It is. Wah! Wah! I've clocked this now. I'm really enjoying this now. So, beloved is speaking, Sheikh Asrar. And what he's speaking about is, for those of you that don't know, he's speaking about drugs, and he wants to speak about intoxication, and he wants to speak eventually about DMT. So he begins by speaking about Imam Abu Hanifa. Why Imam Abu Hanifa? Because things are attributed to Imam Abu Hanifa regarding nabidh. But what is our beloved going to say? So let's see, people. Right, so he begins with this quote.
The statement of Imam Abu Hanifa to validate a deviant interpretation. They say Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala permitted nabidh in small amounts as long as it does not intoxicate. Therefore, they say drinks that are intoxicants other than wine can be taken in small amounts. The answer is that firstly, the fatwa is not given according to that statement in the school.
Acha, acha, acha. So firstly, the fatwa is not given. Secondly, Sheikh, secondly.
As is elaborated upon.
Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, I did bring. Where did I put? Oh! People! This is relax. This is a vitamin way. Let's see. I brought this. Let's see.
In Raddul Muhtar and other works. But the statement of Imam Abu Hanifa should be taken in its true context. What is that true context? I mentioned elsewhere that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala was mentioning this in terms of medicinal use with regard to nabidh. And people said that I have said this without reference, but there are references for this. For quick citation purposes, I'll draw your attention to what is written in I'lamul Anam, the amazing work of Sheikh Nuruddin Itr, rahimahullah ta'ala,
recent.
In volume 4, for taking cannabis falls under iskar.
So, un momentico. I'm going to come back to that. So, beloved, I said that these people are using Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa. One of our teachers used to say it like that. So he's saying people are quoting Imam Abu Hanifa from misquoting. Misquote. Un momento. ¿Qué es eso? كتاب الآثار. لمن هذا الكتاب يا شيخ؟ Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. The student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Acha. ¿Qué dice? What's he saying? Let's see. باب النبيذ الشديد. I'm not making this up. باب النبيذ الشديد. Strong نبيذ. محمد قال أخبرنا أبو حنيفة عن حماد. He mentions a story. He says, Hammad says, قال كنت أتقي النبيذ. I used to be weary of drinking نبيذ. فدخلت على إبراهيم. Right, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i. وهو يطعم. And he's having it as part of food. He's having food. فطعمت معه. So I began eating with him. فأوتي قدحا من نبيذ. He was brought a jug of نبيذ. فلما رأى إبطائي عنه قال, when he saw I was kind of not really taking it, he said to me, Alqama told me from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud that كان ربما طعم عنده ثم دعا بنبيذ له. And then he mentions تنبذه سيرين ولد عبد الله فشرب وسقاني. So he mentions that Ibrahim tells him this story. So he's going from his teachers that when they would go to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he would bring nabidh and give it to him. Medication. Let's go on. قال محمد وَبِهِ نَأْخُذْ وَهُوَ قَوْلُ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. This is what we take and it is the position of Abu Hanifa. Right, now what about the next one? He mentions a hadith from, he says from Dhahhak ibn Muzahim, قال انطلق أبو عبيدة فأراه جرا أخضر لعبد الله ibn Mas'ud. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud again, he gets this big container vessel with nabidh in it. And Muhammad says, this is what we take. Nabidh was the intoxicating, a slightly weakly intoxicating drink. How do we know that? This one. So, Muhammad says, Abu Hanifa told me. He goes on through the chain that Umar ibn al-Khattab said, Inna lil muslimina jazuran li ta'amihim. That Muslims have camel for their food, as in for meat. And then he goes on, mentions, and he says, وَأَنَّهُ لَا يَقْطَعْ لُحُومَ هَذِهِ الْإِبِلِ فِي بُطُونِهَا إِلَّا النَّبِيذَ الشَّدِيدِ. The only thing that really settles this meat and digests it is a strong nabidh drink. And he says, وَهُوَ قَوْلُ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. Now you could say, well, this one, no intoxicating. Oh, acha. What's the next one? Yaar, next one, yaar, el próximo. Okay, so Muhammad from Abu Hanifa says, Umar radiallahu an, utiya bi'a'rabi, a Bedouin was brought to him, qad sakar, that he was drunk. He was drunk, people. فَطَلَبَ لَهُ عُذْرًا فَلَمَّا أَعْيَاهُ. So he tried to kind of, basically they tried to justify it, but this person had lost his, he was out of it, yeah? قال احبسوه. They told him, detain him. فَإِذَا صَحَى فَاجْلِدُوهُ. And they were going to lash him when he wakes up. Now Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu says, وَدَعَا بِفَضْلَةٍ فَضْلَتْ فِي إِدَاوَتِهِ. He says, bring what he had in his idawa. They would have that drinking pouch. Bring that. Let's see what he's got in there. فَذَاقَهَا. He drank it, he tasted it. He was like, says, فَذَاقَهَا فَإِذَا نَبِيذٌ شَدِيدٌ مُمْتَنَعٌ. He says it was a strong, nabith that he had in his, what he'd been drinking, what he was drunk from. And he says, this is one that, it was difficult. فَدَعَا بِمَاءٍ. So he said, bring some water. فَكَسَرَهُ. Diluted it. وَكَانَ عُمَرْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الشَّرَابَ الشَّدِيدِ. He would love the strong kind of nabith that had somewhat low levels of alcohol in it. فَشَرِبَ وَسَقَى جُلَسَاءَهُ. And he drank it and he gave it to people around him. قَالَ. He said, اكسروا بالماء إذا غلبكم شيطانه. Umar said, the nabith you drink, if the devil of it becomes intense, meaning the intoxication is strong, dilute it with water. قَالَ Muhammad وَبِهِ نَأْخُذ. And that is what we take. وَهُوَ قَوْلُ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. And then he goes on. Check this out. He's speaking about different kinds of nabith, made from bittikh, from melon, made from asir. He mentions about how to ferment it and things like this. And then he says, حَتَّى إِذَا اشْتَدَّ شَرِبَهُ وَلَمْ يَرَى بِذَلِكَ بَأْسًا. And وَهُوَ قَوْلُ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. So he mentions so this is nothing to do with medicine. When Abu Hanifa is quoting Umar radiallahu anhu, he's quoting Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he's quoting Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, and these people having it at food and inviting other people to drink. And in the case of Umar, when the person's got so drunk and then he tastes it and says, whoa, that's too strong, you know what? Dilute it with water. This is not medicine. Itni lambi mat phenko. Na. This one no nice. That is very clear. And this is whose book? Am I bringing this? Maliki is bringing this. No. Shafi'is. No. This is Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, the second from the Sahibain. Right? So now let's go on. Right, so we've got here
Muskir. So what is the legal status of cannabis?
What is
he states here, he quotes Al-Hawi al-Saghir, أن الحشيشة نجسة إن ثبت أنها مسكرة.
So mind you, who he quotes here about cannabis is, he does say, the person speaking about hashish says that in thabata, if this was established that it is an intoxicant, then it is haram.
That some of them said if it's an intoxication, then if it intoxicates, then it's najis. Some of them said.
I don't know, by the way, why he keeps defining marijuana as an intoxicant. Clearly does not understand the difference between psychoactive substances and between intoxication and intoxicants and depressants. It is by no means an intoxicant like that. It is not an intoxicant in the sense how alcohol is. If you're using it as an intoxicant, it's not defined as an intoxicant. You don't need to be giving it your own definitions. This has already been done. You see, you can just see how it's defined by people, by psychologists and people who work with both the brain and the impact of substances on the brain. They do not define this as an intoxicant.
This THC is haram. It intoxicates, but can the CBD be used medicinally? The answer is yes.
Vah. So people, for medicine, where did my... I just bought my Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Look at that, people. I've lost my vitamin thing. I'll have to go without it. My vape. Where's the... I don't know. I actually had to find that. I had it from such a while. Thinking, where is it? Nope, it's not here. Not there. The jinns have taken it, people. The jinn. Okay, let's move on. But you can have it for medicine.
That would be halal. Someone asks, does it cure or stabilize cancer from a scientific perspective? As far as I know, THC soothes the pain for cancer patients. It does not cure cancer.
I mean, I want to ask a question here. Look, why are you asking Sheikh Asrar questions about... Why are you asking him on matters of oncology and cancer? I mean, for God's sake, that's just so stupid asking. Go to a doctor, go to a medical specialist, go to researchers in that field and read what they have to say. I'm not saying it does cure it, but why are you even asking Sheikh Asrar, does weed cure cancer, Sheikh? I mean, how the hell would Sheikh know? Honestly, this cracks me up.
Do not follow these. There is a strong pro-cannabis lobby that campaigns.
Oh, un momento, people. Un momento. Sorry. This one, people. This one, not nice. Now, sorry. Going back.
Does it cure or stabilize cancer from a scientific perspective? As far as I know, THC soothes the pain for cancer patients.
What else, Sheikh?
It does not cure cancer.
What does it do at a quantum level?
There is a strong pro-cannabis lobby that campaigns. You've had George Soros and Hugh Hefner and notorious individuals funding the pro-cannabis lobby in America. That you do not pray their funeral prayers. And then someone said,
you see, at this stage,
to counter this,
at this stage, what Beloved is doing is he's saying that, well, you should not pray. He's speaking here about drug dealers. And, okay, he condemns drug dealers and all of that, which is good. And, that makes sense. And then he says, well, you shouldn't pray their janazah. But then what happens is somebody said to him, well, how come you prayed the janazah for a particular one? So he's then justifying that. But chalo, no problem, Sheikh, no problem, this one.
Said you many years ago attended the funeral prayer of a drug dealer. DMT.
So this is the more interesting part that I was curious about. DMT. Cha, DMT.
They say DMT is produced in the mind when.
Chache. I think what he wanted to say was in the brain, but chalo, in the mind. Sheikh, in the mind. If you want it, it's in the mind. Don't worry about it, Sheikh. It's in the mind.
DMT, they say DMT is produced in the mind when a person.
Who's they? The 6-year-olds that play in that corner or something. Chalo, okay.
Goes to sleep. And some of them refer to it as the spirit molecule. They say it's a spirit molecule. The pineal gland is contained within the middle.
Can everybody just take a moment and please do that? Out of honor for our beloved. You see, if Sheikh from that side is doing it and me from this side, we can almost make a love heart. Oh, yeah, Sheikh, you know.
Naughty.
Sheikh, you do it from that side, I'm doing it from this side. We're making a love heart. Yeah, dosti, hum nahi. So, people, pay attention. Yeah, Sheikh is speaking. Pay attention.
Of the brain. This is one of the early works on DMT. You'll find this work online, meaning it's available to purchase. I forgot the name, but DMT, the spirit molecule. Hallucinative drugs. Drugs which give you hallucination. There is no scientific or religious proof to say that when people consume DMT, they are entering the world of the ghaib.
What scientific proof would you get anyway about the ghaib? There's no scientific proof to tell you that you've gone into the ghaib. I mean, what was Sheikh Asrar expecting here? I mean, let's just be honest. Like, what would be that scientific proof anyway? What would it, like, the scientists would say, yep, we can confirm you went there and there happened to be, 15,000 angels that were around you. And I mean, what is the scientific proof about the ghaib? How does that even make any sense? The ghaib is the unseen from a religious perspective. The world which God has kept veiled. So how could science say anything about that anyway? It doesn't. But anyway, let's go back to Sheikh. Sheikh, please to speak, please.
Equality is attained through Qiyamul Layl.
Right, I think you guys missed this. I gotta explain this to you guys. Look, people, here the question is asked that Sheikh, if that be so, DMT cannot give you spirituality, let's say. How does one attain spirituality? The Sheikh is now highlighting, don't take DMT. Abe, Sheikh's not saying it like this, but I'm interpreting on behalf of the Sheikh that, look, Abe Salo, don't take DMT. This one destructive, dimethyltryptamine. No DMT. Don't take DMT. What should you do? What should you do, people? This is what you should do.
To say that when people consume DMT, they are entering the world of the ghaib. Equality is attained through Qiyamul Layl.
You should.
Spirituality is attained through tahajjud, pre-dawn prayer. Spirituality is attained through Qiyamul Layl. Spirituality is attained through tahajjud, pre-dawn prayer.
So basically, just to be clear, Sheikh's message is, people don't try DMT, pray tahajjud. Please, to behave. This one, both pyari baatein hai. This is beautiful speech. This one, it's very beautiful, honestly. I'm being serious here, man. Wake up in the night and pray tahajjud. Yes, yeah. You gotta love it, though. You gotta love the sincerity. Spirituality isn't attained through psilocybin or DMT. Spirituality is attained through tahajjud. Yeah, honestly, I can't get over it. But people, the whole point is we have to remember the whole and keeping in mind the Sheikh is now embarking in a new realm. So we've got this one is dance with chance. People, please behave. On a serious note, people, serious note. Look, I've got a lengthy video explaining both psychedelics, how they are not haram, but how they are things which should be done sensibly. And I've got a detailed video on marijuana. I think I've got more than one clip, but I have a detailed overview in which I do highlight that, look, because of the harm it would cause in especially underage or certain people who are still developing the neural, kind of plasticity, in that sense, there would be a tahrim. It would be haram in the sense of the harm it would cause. But once a person has developed their brain, its neuroplasticity has kind of it's panned out, which is usually around 25. After that, I've said that it's not something Islam encourages. In fact, it doesn't encourage it at all. But it would not be haram if a person was to take marijuana. It would be their own responsibility. It is not. I never said ever said it was a good thing. And I did advocate that people don't do these things, but just because something is not a good thing does not make it haram. Okay? Just as junk food and things like this, in fact, would kill you more easily if you were to binge on junk food. And you can just watch the documentary of the guy who ate just full Mac meals 3 times a day for a month and then went into cardiac arrest. So, and because that's what it would do. Anything in excessive means like that could potentially destroy people. But it doesn't mean that thing is haram. There is a sense of personal liability and responsibility upon the individual in what they do. Obviously, these are issues of legality as well. So that is the understanding. As to DMT, that is definitely not haram. Neither is psilocybin and stuff like that, mushrooms, but these things are issues of legality, but they are portals to connect seriously with consciousness, or what right translate would be in Arabic, the ruh. Okay, in my understanding, but it definitely, in a scientific sense, what he said, there's no scientific proof. There's an abundance of scientific proof. I don't know what he's been looking at. All you have to do is look at the studies of the human brain on hallucinogenics or on this kind of psychoactive substances, whether it's going to be things like even LSD, but psilocybin, especially psilocybin, or mushrooms, or DMT. You have the regions of the brain that are activated are not normally activated, and the level at which the brain waves are operating is a very high at high kind of hertz. It's usually there will be certain stages where they may be above 35 hertz to 100, which some people define as gamma, the kind of gamma level. And great breakthroughs happen at these kind of stages of the brain. That is not just attained just like this. You can't just. I'm not saying it's impossible. You could, through years of meditation, attain that as well. But the effect of DMT and psilocybin, maybe years of meditation could mimic it, but I don't think it would be the same. It would be very difficult to be the same. But obviously, what is attained through years of meditation would have a much longer lasting effect as opposed to a quick shortcut. That is unquestionable. Also, the fact that many religious people downplay these things because they feel it downplays religiosity and spirituality. Because if you admit that, yes, this is just a window into that, then all their practice kind of amounts to nothing. So there's a vested interest to kind of speak against these things. The other thing I wanted to say is that, in all honesty, how can, and this is the hypocrisy, how can Sheikh Asrar seriously go live and declare these things to be haram when he publicly, in a live video, drank poison and then said drinking poison was not haram? Drinking poison is categorically haram in Islam. It is. There's no ifs, no buts. And if you can do that publicly, live, in a way to encourage people and irresponsibly encourage young people to do it, just to somehow believe that this is a way to determine the truth, I'm upon the haqq, let me drink poison and prove it to you people, right? If you can do that, and then when questioned about it, say, no, it's not haram if you believe you're going to be okay. This was his response. It's still on his videos. If you check when his interview post poison drinking, he says that he's asked, is it haram? Is it haram? Now, he says, it's not haram if you know you're going to be okay. How can you possibly declare poison to be not haram and DMT to be haram? That is just stupid. I mean, poison is ridiculously much more harmful than any of these things, than weed or than, mushrooms or DMT. It's, ridiculously, absurdly more dangerous. So, in fact, the very essence of it is designed to kill. It has no secondary essence. Drinking poison is just either you're going to die or you're going to suffer from internal bleedings or you're going to get lucky. There is no good to come out of this. I mean, it has no function except to harm. I mean, that is the absurdity. So, yeah. So I saw this clip and I thought, well, I have to kind of go over that, share my thoughts. People, I think we got to wrap this up. It's been amazing. Defense, not design, super chatted, much love. Shukran for that. Right, yep, I've answered all the others. So, people, you've been shukran for your patience. Some of your questions today, or maybe, maybe I've just had a long day. I couldn't understand some of the questions you were asking. Maybe that was just me, but I genuinely couldn't. Ratvi Saab just wants to refute everything Mufti says. It is true, he's only doing this DMT thing because, I've done videos saying DMT is not haram. And so, he has to kind of speak on DMT, but he doesn't even know what DMT is, hasn't ever, very uninitiated with the whole thing. And speaking on it, just making it haram. But on matters like poison, like bloody rat poison, I mean, for God's sake, for the love of God, rat poison. publicly consuming rat poison and then justifying it by saying it's not haram if you know you're going to be okay. I mean, I don't know how you'll know that, but if you feel you're going to be okay, it's okay. It's just absurd. It's absurd. Let's do DMT together. We are all those who walk this path. Mufti, you said in Surah Baqarah that the two angels here refer to saint-like kings here. Does Allah use similar metaphors in other parts of the Qur'an? Yes, of course. There's many metaphors used in the Qur'an. The other realm is called Ard al-Haqiqah. Okay, sure. Why not? Why not? Shukran for the super chat, Ryan. There are many metaphors in the Quran. I mean, we can go over that maybe in a bit more detail another day, but there are plenty of I mean, whether it's going to begin from the utmost Allah himself saying he is light, he's the light that we see in the heavens. Obviously we don't, it's not a literal sense. It's spoken as a metaphor, right down to when Allah says, well, this wall wanted to do this. It wanted to collapse. Obviously, the wall doesn't want. That's a metaphorical reference. And in between, there's countless kind of references. Like whether in Surah Yusuf, Ma hadha basharun in hadha illa malakun kareem. This is not a human, this is but a benevolent angel. So these kind of things are used. People do call sometimes humans angels, just as they call them shayateen. So Allah says in Surah Surah An-Nas, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. So those shayateen from the jinn and from the people, you get shayateen. So calling a human a shaytan is the opposite of calling a human an angel. I mean, these things are used interchangeably. I hope that answers that question. People, right, that's enough for tonight. Take very good care of yourselves. I was just seeing somebody saying, Yep, I've answered everything I can see here. Right, okay, people, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, abe haramio. Get over there, get liking, get subscribing. Make sure you click the notification bell. People. And look out for the Discord thing. I did show that earlier on. I will have that, inshallah. I'm going to have a meeting with my executive task force. See where they've got to. People, other than that, have an awesome night. Take very good care of yourselves. And remember, people, sometimes you just have to take the chance, man. You have to just take the chance, people. Dance pe chance lo, yaar. Chance le lo, yaar. People, much love as always. Take care. Salamullahi alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, people. Stay blessed, man.